Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Here's McKinnon, shoots. Short side play there, and the Grubauer stiffed that up pretty well. Rip to McCarr. Beat the one-timer. He scores! Miko Rantanen. One time to inside the near post. Up. Carlson's outlet pens the midst of a change. Raquel gets stick on puck as it deflects down to the Islander end. Turnover, great atop the crease, they score! Sidney Crosby on the backhand. It's 5:98, and it's 1-0.
Netherlands. He'll drop it for Wenberg. The big wide turn. Wenberg cuts his way in. Wenberg to the net. Wenberg scores!
Good morning. Welcome in to Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here.
That sounds delicious.
Pillar exterior stage. Yeah, I didn't know it was going to be that loud on the when I cracked the old can there.
Yeah.
Don't worry, it's an energy drink. It wasn't like I wasn't like popping a bud early this morning or anything.
Popping
like
a
that.
bud.
You know, I don't even drink Budweiser really, but that's okay.
Oh, that's probably smart.
More of a, you know me, I'm more of a seltzer guy.
Oh, I thought you'd be like fancy pants, like
I do like some fancy
brewed
beers.
what are they? Craft.
Micro brews or craft brews?
Yep.
Yeah, I like a good craft brew.
Second time you've taught me about micro in as many days.
What did I teach you yesterday?
Dosing.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that was a couple days ago.
What's today?
Wednesday?
Oh, shoot. There's 3 days.
Time's flying by on a bye week when you're having fun.
Wow. Fun?
We got new coaches. It's all fun.
Yeah, we have the whole thing misconstrued, though. Like, we're way off, but it's okay.
Well, enlighten me.
No.
I would like to be enlightened.
I think
you can't just say we got it all wrong and then not tell me what's right.
Wait, can I just do the first thought?
Okay, sure.
So, no, we're not having fun. This is not a great week.
Okay.
That was your first comment.
All right.
The other micro thing, so I started to, like, research it.
Oh, yeah, microdosing.
I think I just rather get the shots.
Yeah, that's fine.
And then level off.
Yeah.
Right? As opposed to little incrementals. We're just talking about game day men's health. Don't mind us.
Yeah, I was talking about how different people take their TRT, their testosterone replacement.
Yeah.
Some people like to, because they used to do it even less frequently. They would do one like once a month.
Uh-huh.
Not game day. Other people would do it like once a month. So they'd like give you like a really large dose and then you'd like taper off. The once a week is a little bit more even.
I love game day.
Dude, it's great.
I can't believe how comfortable I am, and it's not my thing.
And yeah, I can't believe you're that comfortable anywhere that's like not your house.
Yeah,
honestly.
I know. Well, so I think part of it is
What's
like
that?
This is a secret, but for whomever's listening, like they match my
like your vibe.
So I'll say just about anything.
Yeah.
It just depends on if I can filter it or not, right? Like that's kind of how it is.
Yeah. No, I agree.
It's very
comfortable.
It's very comfortable,
which I appreciate.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you have to talk about some uncomfortable things.
Well, I was
nervous going in.
I was nervous.
Because I had never done anything like that before.
And Shane, I want to know what your response would be. I'm going to tell this story real quick. So you have to get a shot, right? And you're Anglo, so maybe it's not as important to you, but
it's probably not.
Brothers, white people use lotion. Brothers sometimes use lotion, right? Because of our,
like siblings.
Yeah, sure, siblings. So I'm getting a shot, and I've told you about Sky. Sky has got like zero filter, but
she got jokes though.
She's very funny, and she makes it like she can put a great big old needle in your arm, and it's like no big deal. Like she's that
very
cool.
Put you at ease. Yeah.
Yeah, she's cool. So in the middle of the shot, she's like, "You have to unclench. Like this is why it's taking so long. Like you have to loosen up." So I was like, oh, okay, whatever.
It's going to hurt more that way, too.
I'm going to loosen my cheeks up, whatever. And she goes, you need some lotion. like mid shot. You need some lotion. I'm like, excuse me? What? Excuse me? Who says that?
I mean, listen.
So she goes, man.
She's giving shots all day, you know.
She goes, you got some Kevin Durant. Like, does it hurt when you walk? I go, oh, my gosh.
First of all, the Kevin Durant reference is hilarious.
So I'm traumatized. And this is all in like 20 seconds.
So you're all like moisturizing up next.
So, yep. Watch. I got you next time. So I walk out, and my man is at the front desk. And, you know, he's hilarious.
Yes.
He is in tears.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm sorry, man. I said, no, it's fine. Don't worry. It's fine. And there's a dude coming in. He's already at the counter. And he's looking at me like, oh, my God. You're as dumb as you act on the radio. I guarantee you that's what he was thinking. I mean, he just looked at me with this little smirk like,
I think
he goes, he had to be thinking, this is not an act.
So that's what I was going to say is I think when people meet you and like you kind of loosen up a little bit, they're like, oh, it's not a bit.
Yeah.
Like this is DB.
Yeah. I remember one time like T-Mose would say, how do you function?
I don't know.
I'm like, shoot, pop me kettle, but very carefully.
That's true. I will say sometimes I wonder that dude's got some stories.
Dude, he's wild. He's wild. So I want to make sure that
I like hanging out with T-Mose
that I'm nice and lotioned up. Shane, would you have been traumatized? I know you want to be like fit and get back in. Like I know you're working out again. I'm telling you, man, you need to go get checked. I'm telling you, it's great. It's great.
I'm too exhausted from being amazing yesterday.
I don't think there's anything amazing about you.
It's never occurred to me once in my life to be like, man, I got to lotion up the cheeks.
I try to do everything, but sometimes you're just in a hurry.
Yeah.
She said this.
Just kind of forget about it, you know, forget it's back there.
And I don't just rub my butt. You know what I mean? Just got to keep it moving for the visible parts. It's only like a little, like it's not like it's like,
no, it's just like a very
full moon. It's just like the top.
Cheek. Yeah. That's true. You can't clench, otherwise it does hurt more. That's why you're having that problem earlier.
Okay, relax.
Yeah, exactly. Relax.
I got it now.
Relax.
Freaking bats.
So let's get the micro thing out of the way. The week is fine. You know, Big Red Wrap Up was it was kind of loose but intense.
Yeah. I was watching, I was kind of looking at Jay's face on there a little bit. Like
so Jay's cool. I love Jay.
Yeah.
But he's very
part of OG Elkhorn.
Yeah, he's a good dude.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get him to come up here, and we like a couple of the same things.
49 are great.
And so he's like, yeah, man, come to Omaha. Just hide out. Remember I told you the story, he walked home after the game because he couldn't get an Uber?
Yeah. And he's like, forget it.
Yeah. Like he'll do stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like he's very whatever, like just
pragmatic.
Just find a way. Yeah. So I like that. But that's how he looks at this team too.
Yeah. Like, hey, just figure it out.
Yeah, because I think so there's two types of there's 2.5 types of people. There's the people that are like in between coach player responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
There's the people who are like, man, it's the coach's fault. And then there are the former players where it's like, man,
hey, do your job.
It's the player's fault.
Like, hey, do your job.
So it's like, because you'll look at some things and you're like, I don't understand why you would do that.
Yeah.
But then if you've never done it, then you're looking and you're like, well, why would they allow them to do that, man? They should just bench them. Well, it doesn't really work like that either.
Yeah.
So you
got to have
moral of the story is it's usually somewhere in the middle.
Do your job.
Because it's like Denny. He asked me, is it Dennis or Denny?
Is this the one we like or don't like?
No, I like him. You don't like him. I like him.
Okay, it's Denny.
I don't even know if you don't know.
I don't know.
Like him.
No.
So he goes, our players inconsistent, our coaches not putting him in a position to succeed. I'm sure it's some of both, but it seems like it's a coaching issue, not a player issue. So a lot of times, so that's like a fan, right? Because you want, like, and somebody tweeted at me yesterday. They're like, I want my pound of flesh. No, it was Sunday, so it was early, so I knew this thing was going to be.
Which is fine if that's what it is.
I want my pound of flesh, but I'm like, I'm just telling you, in a 2-by to the field, nobody's teaching that guy to play inside leverage and get beat on a 7 cut.
Yeah.
Nobody. They just aren't. So, like, I don't know what you want me to tell you.
And
But I will listen to, hey, you know what? Like, he's holding the ball. Ryle's holding the ball a little bit. He's kind of locking into a guy as opposed to knowing concepts. Are you teaching concepts?
Mm-hmm. Or the
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
that's a
so
fair
like
question.
so that I would listen
Yeah.
to. And I don't, and I'd have to know the
the routes you're putting together taking too long to develop.
Yeah,
like whatever.
Like we get a lot of people now that will just like look at a play and they'll put it up there and they have no idea what the original intent was.
Yeah. You only know what happened.
And that's fine. Like, I'm not saying you have to know that this was the desired outcome, but you have to be careful because people will glob onto it, and then lots of people will be talking about things that they don't know. So sometimes you'll look at something and the receiver did the wrong route. It happens in the NFL all the time.
Yeah.
And those are pros, right?
All the time.
So it happens in college too. So when I'm looking at this whole thing, I'm like, I go back to my general rule that I talked about a couple of weeks ago. If it's something pet-ish that you do on the regular and you don't get it executed, that's a player thing. If it's installing concepts and you don't have a good grasp of it, that is a coaching thing. Generally speaking.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you should know how to get the duo out of ace or again, leverage.
So if we're sitting there, and let's use the Raiola example, right? If we're sitting there, he's holding on for the ball for too long, and we decide it's because he wasn't really taught concepts or the concepts of the offense. That would be a coaching thing.
You want the best of both worlds.
What's that?
The really tough catch that Barney made, not the sliding diving one where he came from Jupiter over to Earth,
over the top
to catch that ball.
Yeah.
The one where he went up and it was contested along the hash.
Yep.
So that's probably a thing where I bet Dylan's thinking, got to make a play. I'm going to find my playmaker. Right? So he made a tough throw.
Yeah.
You have a little outcut. You have a little choice route by your running back where if you just throw him the ball, he's probably going to get the same amount of yardage, and it's a much easier catch.
Yeah.
So that's one of those where in your head you're relaying like, get my guy the ball?
Or what's the concept?
Or what's the concept? Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? If he runs the curl and they sink, I probably have the option route.
So it doesn't matter in that scenario.
So what I'll say, because I'm a ding dong, I'll say up there in my head. I don't think I said this one out loud. In my head, I'll say, "Golly, man, he made the tough throw. He could have just made the easy one. He may
which
tell me,
we've seen a little bit of a habit of.
He may tell me, oh, I'm reading it this to this, and Barney's my first option.
Even on the,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I know what I'll see.
Yeah.
But then I have to see because if Barney doesn't make a great catch, which it was, he kind of jumped up. It was kind of on his back shoulder. It's kind of like a bang, bang play. If he doesn't make that catch, do you know what the crowd will say?
Bad play call.
Back was wide open.
Yeah, back was wide open.
Why did he throw him the ball?
Well, same thing on the other Barney catch too,
that
right?
happens a ton.
Same thing on the other Barney catch too, right? Because that one where he comes from Jupiter to come and make that throw on a ball that looked like it was.
Could you see that from where? Did you see it real time?
Yes.
So am I exaggerating when I said he started on the right hash and caught it at the bottom of the numbers?
No.
He was just inside the far right.
I didn't even know where he was throwing the ball,
bro.
I had no idea where he was throwing the ball.
I couldn't believe how far he went to get that ball.
When he let go, I go, "Oh, that's a terrible throw," because I didn't see anybody in my point of view. But even on that one, I believe it was Jamal Banks was wide open, middle of the field.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you're looking for, so that's the difference between like, hey, I'm reading through my 1, 2, 3, 4th option versus
that's coaching.
Yes.
Okay.
Versus, well, I think it's two different things you could be.
I'll bail you out. Finish.
So I think it's two different things you could be taught here because there's 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going through my progressions versus.
That's okay. So isolated. That's coaching. ... Go.
And versus, hey, this concept should open up this area of the field or this area or this particular concept route.
That's development,
right? So I think
there's those are two. Those are.
But those are. Well, one is coaching. The other is kind of player and coaching, right? Development's both.
That's experience.
Yeah.
So, like, if it's hoops and it's like, hey, gosh, they're playing this when I run this little pin down, flare screen action. They keep playing it like this. I think this time I'm just going to slip.
Yeah. Instead of going through, hey, my first option is to come off the ball screen.
Yeah.
My second option is the roll man. My third option is the short corner.
Does that make?
Yeah.
That's what happens.
Yeah.
So that's what happens. And I'll give you a third one that complicates matters.
Mm-hmm.
Trust.
With the wide receivers?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sure.
This guy will make me a play. I don't know if this guy will make me a play.
Sure.
I trust this guy. Like, that just happens.
100%.
And every quarterback does it. We're trying to get B-Dub out of that.
Yeah.
Braylon.
You're like, hey, that's a guy I trust.
Hey,
he's getting the rock.
Just take the easy one.
Yeah.
Just take the easy
Well,
one.
there was another one. I think it ended up being on incompletion with Raiola where he's got, I think it's Emmett Johnson on a wheel route, wide open. This was late. And he throws. He bails out of the pocket.
Yeah. I
right?
saw it.
He bails out of the pocket the wrong direction. Otherwise, I mean, Emmett Johnson might still be running.
If Barney's running the little rub route as opposed to Bullock,
Probably sees him that direction.
He probably sees it quicker, but I can still tell you, I don't like booting left in that situation off the timeout.
Yeah.
So two things could be true at once,
100%.
right?
Yeah.
But Bullock's open because it's Bullock.
Right.
But it's awkward because
you
have me run action going to my left.
Yeah.
Right? So some of that is it's a little of both.
Yes.
It's a little
the concepts thing, right? You have to learn and have the development and have the experience as a quarterback. We also have to be being taught, right, in real time.
Yep.
Hey, this is what we want to come open here. In this type of play, these are the concepts that should come open.
You want another example?
Versus these are the guys that should come open, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fedoni's got an easy cover 2 beater.
Yeah.
Right? Because in cover 2, the corners squat. Safeties, this is in theory.
Sure.
Safeties get over the tops of number 1. So just imagine them widening.
For your receivers.
Corners squatting. There's a middle of the field area. So one of the backers will be a deep hole guy. Just imagine Derek Brooks like sprinting 50 yards
back
to get deep hole in the middle of the field. And you have a shallow hole guy.
He was getting crossers.
Yep. Then you have 2 wall guys that wall anything coming from inside. Because you have a low hole guy, a high hole guy. Everybody's
so
out.
basically creating a square, like a box.
So the middle of the field is open. So you have 2 wall guys that don't let you in there. Well, the soft spot in 2 is middle of the field open. That's where Thomas was. So Dylan can say
on the press 6.
Yeah. So Dylan can say in a press conference, hey, I came off my first read too soon. That's on me.
Because he's got to get through the wall guy. Fedoni has to get through the wall guy, and Raiola has to wait for him.
Yeah. And he came open clear. It's just, but that let you know that Dylan understood the concept.
Yeah. He just moved
He
quick.
just rushed it.
Yeah.
So
maybe that's a seeing ghost in the pocket thing.
Or, like, it doesn't even have to be that fancy. It's just sometimes players have to do their part, even though they're coached.
Sure.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But could also be, listen, on the boot on the goal line in the red zone, that's the first time I'd seen that play as a concept.
So maybe he didn't feel as comfortable with that one.
Probably shouldn't call that play.
Yeah, maybe that's something he feels real comfortable with.
That's not on Dylan.
Yeah.
Right? So
it's going to be some combination of both.
Yeah,
right?
and it happens all the time.
And it happens the other way too, right? Like I saw a play from Monday night with Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, right?
Isn't he something?
And you go through, and Travis Kelce's not running a route so much. And we see this all the time with him. We see this all the time with him, right?
My man's out there running like 5.5s.
He's just doing, yes. And he's not running routes. He's just like, okay, I'm not open. I'm going to do this, whatever. And Patrick's just going to find me. And he does.
You see Watson just sitting down in soft spots?
Yeah.
Mahomes isn't even really ready.
Yeah.
But because he's so good with those arm angles and he's open now, he just throws the ball.
He'll get it to him.
It's
unbelievable.
Maddening.
Yeah.
It's not made up, but it's made up.
Yeah. No, it is made up.
Because you have to be in such rhythm. There's a handful of quarterbacks that are throwing that slant to D-Hop when he threw it. I'm telling you.
Handful might be too many.
He threw that thing so, by the way, but at no point was he not going to give you the look like D-Hop was going to win off the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
And the dude from Tampa, poor 32, he's like,
what do you do there?
You got to be pooping me.
Yeah, what do you do there? There's nothing you can do there.
Not a darn thing.
And that's my point is, like, you've got like, yes, Andy Reid's an offensive genius. What Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes do together has nothing to do with Andy Reid.
I know.
Like, it has nothing to do with him.
Yeah, it's ask anybody that defends us. I listen to who's the really good safety that I like from the Falcons? Oh, Justin Simmons.
Yeah.
So he's had some success against Mahomes. He's like, look, man, I'm just going to tell you guys, you can come up with game plans for that dude.
No, it doesn't matter.
It's the secondary stuff that he does after the initial.
We talk about it with the scrambling all the time, right? Where he has like 2-3 runs a game that break your back. Yeah. He does it with the rest of the stuff all the time. You can guard the initial perfectly, and it's just not going to matter.
Was there anybody else in America when the Tampa Bay tied the game and you're like, yeah, they ain't winning?
Yeah, I was stunned that they had to go to overtime. I was stunned.
They ain't winning.
And then did you see Baker Mayfield's face when they lose the toss?
Oh, yeah.
Just goes,
it's a wrap.
It's like, that's a wrap. That's how I felt the Super Bowl. That's how I'm sitting in the Super Bowl. And I'm like, oh, they gave him the ball back, so we're obviously screwed here.
It's a wrap. But I think and there'll be plenty to talk about. I stand by kind of what I was talking about yesterday with the right guy for the job will do the necessary things. Mm-hmm. And how fast did that happen?
Pretty fast.
He told us.
Yeah. He's like, there's nothing I won't do.
And we said during, like, yesterday, he's telling you exactly how it's going to go down.
Yeah. There's nothing I won't do to get us over the top.
Hey, I hope you'll do it with me.
Yeah.
I hope the players will too. But if not,
I'll just take whoever wants to go.
I'm going to figure this out.
Yeah.
Right?
We will get there with whoever wants to go with me.
Had some young guys overlap.
Can I throw something out there with you? Because I'm not going to let you off the hook on the Dana Holgorsen thing yet. But I'm going to do Phil Snow first.
Okay.
Who is reportedly in town just as a look-in.
Yeah.
I know people are like, oh, former defensive coordinator, blah, 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 whatever. Are we not giving enough credence to the fact that he made his bones as a defensive backs coach, and maybe he's got a little bit more experience talking to young guys?
Yeah.
Because I don't know that Tony White needs help.
Yeah.
But I think maybe the defensive backs need a little help.
I'll stop you when you tell a lie.
Because we talked about this yesterday, right? We talked about it several times. John Butler, NFL guy, used to communicating with older guys, right? Phil Snow, been talking to young guys his whole life, has his entire background with defensive backs.
And, I mean, it's no coincidence. Position groups got together last night with Coach Rule.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of need a touch. Hey, going out of town. I'm going to go recruit. Where are we at?
Yeah, just checking.
Yeah. It's no coincidence that those guys were on the back end last night.
Yeah.
But anyway, let me fast forward. The other thing, don't forget, too, is I used this example with the light-skinned guy on Big Red Wrap-Up last night. If you didn't watch it, shame on you. You should watch it every week. Even though my producer, my man yelled at me last night.
Did he?
In my ear.
Like Cam Broham does? Woo.
So I said this about Snow. It would be like if I asked somebody I didn't know as well something, the same thing I would ask Severe. Hey, go back and listen to this audio clip. Tell me what you think. I would receive it better from Severe than I would somebody else.
Just some stranger.
A little older. Well, a lot older. Been there. I trust him.
You have a relationship.
He could talk to me in a way that wouldn't hurt my feelings, but I know would get to the point.
Yeah.
That could be Snow, too.
That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. I'm going to not let you off the hook on the Dana Holgorsen thing here in a minute when we come back on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. All right, DB.
What do you want? By the way, did you see the college football playoffs?
I did see the rankings.
Can't wait to talk about that.
We will here in a minute, but you said something in the opener that I got to return to.
No idea what you're talking about.
You said we got it all wrong with Dana Holgorsen.
I maybe spoke too soon. I don't know.
Well, I mean, what do you think? Why do you think we have it all wrong?
I don't know what you think. I'm sorry. I was just talking.
Why do you think the general public has it all wrong?
I don't know. Like, just this is a lot of fast forwarding, and I just don't think
You mean to like next year?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I just don't think Coach Rule does anything willy-nilly. So I think he's probably closer to, again, I swear, just my opinion. He's probably closer to more measured than he is
like reactionary.
So I don't know what this is going to look like. I really don't.
But you don't think this is about,
especially in the short term.
Yeah. You don't think this has anything to do with next year. This is just, hey, let's figure this out.
I think he's in the moment.
Yeah.
Let me just say that. I think he's in the moment.
I think that's fair. Because you're right. A lot of people are fast forwarding to like, okay, so this means next year he's going to be the OC.
It's the same. It's the same
and,
thing that I said about Butler being a DC. I'm like, well, hold on, man. Are we sure White's leaving?
Yeah.
You know. So I'm like that because I think they're like that.
Sure. Yeah. I think that's
I'm not
fair.
like that because I'm smart. I'm just using.
Yeah, you've been around him a little bit.
I'm just using deductive clues.
Yeah. Which I agree. I don't think this – and listen, maybe Dana Holgerson's on staff next year, maybe he's not. I think this was about this year. I think this is about the last 3 games. I think this was an opportunity with a bye week to say, hey, we think there's things that we can do offensively.
What did he tell you yesterday? What did he tell you Monday in the presser? We need to get to a bowl game.
Yeah.
Our guys deserve to get to a bowl game.
Yeah.
I think they will do everything they can to get to a bowl game.
Which if they're going to do everything they can,
that's what
he's going to do everything he can.
I mean, go back and listen to the presser from Monday, and then check out the 8:50 news dump yesterday.
Yeah. No, I think it.
Check, a couple guys over at the house last night. Like, I mean, it all. He didn't have to tell us everything, but he told us a lot.
Yeah.
And it's a total chess checkers thing. Now we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah.
But
we don't know if it's going to work.
Let's not act like my man is. That's why there's just a lot of things that were pissing me off along the way. And I'm like, you guys have no idea. Like, we're just knee jerking because we're upset. So I'm just gonna let you be upset, but I'm not giving in to.
Yeah.
Oh, say something like, oh, you're eerily quiet. It's like you're being a Dean Blandino. Like, you want me to get gassed up like you, and I'm not. Like, I'm not. I need to go back and see what I saw, so I can have it. Trust me, these dudes that got gut reactions. Let me know what you think about what they say.
Because it's usually not about what they say; it's about how they say it.
Generally speaking,
the
guys that got to get on social media. Oh, hey, let me know how those guys pan out. Sometimes you need to slow down.
Yeah,
and think about what's being said. Like, you don't always have to be first.
And listen, I understand the fans that are – listen, I understand if you're mad, but just acknowledge that that's what you're doing.
Totally.
That's all I'm asking for, right? Like the guy that tweets at you and say, hey, I just want my pound of flesh. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I can't remember that, but it was so disarming.
Yeah.
You thought it would be just the opposite. Like,
no, I get – no, I'm on the same page.
He was so honest.
Exactly.
I was like, oh, I'm cool.
It's like when Joel –
it's better than the idiot that's like –
who tries to convince you that his anger is justified.
It's always interesting when you don't say anything post-game.
Right?
Because you want me to be like you.
People want us to be as mad as they are. Which sometimes I do. Sometimes I do get as mad as everybody else does.
Hey, and like real time, nobody has any idea what's going through my mind.
Yeah.
Because I'm watching it and I'm having to talk. And let me tell you how good Sharpie is. So at one point, I must have said something to the effect of, I have to go back and listen. I must have said something to the effect of, hey, he's got Dowdell or EJ, he's wide open, just give him the ball. And Greg goes, just in the flow of the conversation, he goes, man. He goes, it's crazy how you and I can see so many things. You just wonder what he's seeing down on the field. That triggered me to say, hey, it is pretty easy for me up here to see who's open. And I don't know if that was his intent in telling me.
Yeah.
But that's just the kind of vibe that sometimes you have to have real time if you don't want to go there with somebody.
Yeah, you got to – that's the perspective, right?
Yeah. So, like, I can appreciate that. I'm like,
well, and it is different too, right? We talk about it all the time with offensive coordinators in the booth versus on the sideline or wherever, right? Like, even they can see things differently.
And Seth's literally 3 feet from me.
Yeah,
he's the thickness of glass away from me.
Right.
Yeah. However thick that glass is. Now it's blacked out, so like I can't.
Yeah.
Like the bottom of it, but it's just little stuff. Now, if he would have said, yeah, and you got to throw – like if he would have approached that differently, who knows what that would have elicited from me.
Right, because that could have piled on and gashed you up a little bit.
But he just was like –
yeah, hey. You wonder what he's seeing on the field instead.
So in the moment, like in my head, I'm like, I'm like air dapping him.
Yeah.
I didn't. We're working.
Right.
And it's fast. But in my head, I'm probably talking. I'm like, yeah, and third and 6 year, we're thinking, gosh, I really appreciate his delivery. Like that's what I'm thinking in my head.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because what can happen is when people want you to do something and see something the same way you do in the moment, it's not always productive.
Well, yeah, and you can lose perspective you might otherwise have.
Is not always productive.
Right. And
so I don't hop on social media with like quick takes.
We can say all that and at the same time say, hey, at some point Dylan needs to see the open receivers.
Yeah.
Those both can be true.
I needed some time leaving Columbus to think you can't just turn a guy loose on 2 to run down the hash and have the commentator talk about how fast he is.
Yeah.
When it didn't really have anything to – his speed helped, but it wasn't like that route didn't come open because he was fast.
Right. Came open because there's a miscommunication on the coverage.
Yeah, so I went back and watched. So I had to go back and watch Gifford pre-snap.
Yep.
He says something to
they need to pass him off.
Play side safety looks at Giff. They move coverage. Then the play happens. So I have to think to myself, maybe he just didn't turn him loose. Maybe it was miscommunication.
Yeah.
Which forced me to go back and look at how they played the condensed set a couple series earlier. Like, oh, they may have swapped coverages.
Yeah.
They may have played it this way against this, and then they knew that they got hurt.
So they played it different way.
They played it this way here.
Yeah.
So they could get to the wheel.
Yeah.
So you have to have some grace, right? It's not like, oh man,
nothing to do with a guy running a 4.2.
It's like
4.5 would have scored
know
there
what
too.
I mean? So I actually like I like that kind of stuff. So I think with Coach, when I listen to the delivery of the presser, and I watch what happened with people coming in town and kind of the players and how they're processing through it and how they're handling the bye week, I would simply and safely say they won't leave any stone unturned in terms of being productive in the meantime. Nobody's sitting idly by
and just waiting for next year.
And just waiting for to keep doing the same thing.
We hope we win. We hope we win one more doing what we're doing.
That's not happening.
I mean, we even saw that last year.
Right. But he said something really slick that I could appreciate now. He said, heck, last year we were consistent.
Yeah. That's what I harped on yesterday. Right? You can be consistent, and that's not a good thing.
He knew what they were going to do, so he could try to coach it.
He could coach around it. Yeah. Predictability is important at some
that's
point.
the part of me that really gravitated towards Sat, because at that particular time, you needed somebody that was as flexible and not as rigid, that would do what they needed to do to get by.
Right.
Because last year was a do what you needed to do to get by. So that's where I was always, man, you need a guy like that. You don't get that life without Sat in it. Everybody's like, oh man, you feel like this, and I'm like, you're not listening.
No, but that very easily could have been a 2 or 3 win team.
Yeah, and some really, really smart people, like everybody's different. Like, not everybody could function in chaos. But now you need to gravitate towards, okay, when it's not as chaotic, can I settle in and establish some protocols? Now they're there because you have you have good enough players,
right? And you're not dealing with trying to flip an offense in the middle of the season and whatever.
So now you got to settle in and play and do big boy things.
It's like Godfather, right? You got your wartime consigliere, you got your peacetime consigliere.
Right. Yeah.
Like maybe Satterfield was the right wartime consigliere. Now you need one for a drop back quarterback.
I'll vibe with that.
We'll wrap up hour number 1, and maybe we'll set up the show too coming up next year on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and we're live here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. Coming up on the show today, we've got Brian Christopherson from Husker 24/7 coming up at 8 o'clock. We've got our guy Andy Kendy from KETV coming up at 8:30.
Saw him last night.
9 o'clock, we got our guy Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. I almost said Mitch Richmond for some reason.
Saw him Saturday.
Just got in my head. I was like, Mitch Richmond from The Athletic.
Run TMC.
Mitch Richmond from the Kings.
Yeah. Who were the trio?
So it's Chris
Quickly.
Mullen, Tim Hardaway, and Mitch Richmond.
Okay. Who was the 3.5 amigo that they added a little later?
Ooh, what year are we talking?
I'm gonna go with 90, maybe one.
Ooh, 91.
No. It's tough. Yeah, 89, 90.
89, 90 Warriors.
He famously,
Yeah.
and they had to play really small. He famously choked a coach.
Oh, Sprewell.
Yeah.
Yeah. PJ Carlissimo.
Yeah. Yeah, they had Latrell Sprewell.
I forgot.
Was in that circle.
I forgot he went there that early.
Yeah. I mean, he was young, little Trell.
That's what threw me off there, because I always think of Trell like mid to late 90s Knicks.
Yeah.
I knew he played for him
Yeah,
for
he
the
was
Warriors
a
before
Warrior.
that.
Yeah.
I didn't realize he was all the way back that early with the Run TMC boys, though.
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, yeah. They could score.
Yeah.
Is that Nelly?
Yeah.
I don't mean
so.
I
Don.
meant Don.
Yeah, I think so.
Band-Aid.
Because he had a couple stints with them.
Yeah.
He had a couple stints kind of everywhere, for being honest. Nelly spent some
He
time.
was supposed to be a good offensive mind. I mean, his
think-
teams could score.
I think he was. I think he was a good offensive mind. Had a nice little run with Dallas there for a minute.
Yeah, I'm not a Dallas guy.
Big Mavericks guy, you are.
No, I'm not.
I can tell.
No, I'm not.
I was a
It's
big
a lot of fibbing.
I was a big Dirk Nash guy. Dirk Nash, Finley, those were good teams.
Yeah, I'm not.
No,
I do. I mean, I'll give it to you.
Those
I
were
think
fun teams.
Dirk was highly underappreciated.
oh yeah, he was unbelievable.
He was incredible.
Yeah, and also sort of like had a little small revolution for the game.
You wanna be a revolution?
Big Beatles guy.
No,
Love the Beatles.
no, I'm not. There's always these Beatles truthers, and I'm not trying to be that guy, but overrated.
You
hit me up, Leslie. Call 888-638. You need to talk to John. John has some.
You are my sunshine.
You bigger Beatles or Elvis fan?
Absolutely neither. Wow. You talking bottom 5 across the board ever of either of those two folks.
And at 9:45, we'll talk to John Fanta. He's a college basketball
Who
broadcaster.
won't have
for
near
Fox.
enough time.
No, we won't. But we still love talking to John.
That's good. That's good get, Shane.
Creighton kicks off their season tonight. Nebraska kicked off their season on Monday, so we'll get some college hoops action with our guy John Fanta.
Yeah,
we love John.
TK said he's not sure he'd go back to a place that told him he needed more lotion on his cakes.
Well, listen,
she's the GOAT.
Sometimes we got to hear things we don't want to hear if they're true. You know,
right?
That's what we.
I won't. I told her I won't make that mistake again.
I was gonna say, if you gotta take some self eval, be like, hey,
it is.
Are the cheeks dry?
I do think they're like the level of how comfortable they make it is 100% the trick.
Oh yeah, that's the secret sauce.
Because you're gonna get the good services anyway.
Yeah, you're gonna get.
So
you
might as well enjoy it.
You're gonna be comfortable. Like that's the way to go. You gotta.
And it's super. The design in there.
It is cool. Like you don't feel like you're in a doctor's office, which I like.
I went and squeezed the football Monday.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go back Friday. I'm gonna see.
Well inflated.
Yeah, they're like. I know you think I'm joking. They're pumped up.
I'm not joking. I just think it's funny.
Oh, so
we're talking about how
I have a short attention span.
I just think it's funny how we're talking about sports balls being inflated.
But the baseball you could tell is fairly old though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not good grip on it.
Seams are worn.
I like good seams.
Yeah, it can lead to some blisters.
I know, but you get better break on that thing,
Yeah.
Get better grip.
Spin right.
Feel good.
No.
Break that thing off.
No.
That thing wet.
Did you see? You saw. So you saw both the guys. You saw Mitch and BC Saturday.
I don't think I saw Mitch.
Mitch is a mover.
Yeah.
He's kind of like.
And I typically kind of like once I get to my spot, I kind of camp out.
You do sit.
Yeah, I don't wander.
You're like the 24/7 sports guys.
Yeah, I just kind of camp out.
And they're all in succession.
Yeah, you got Shafe, Brunson, and BC.
Yep.
I think I saw BC. I don't think I talked to BC.
BC doesn't say much.
And the other thing, especially with those 2:30 games, is I just set up my computer. I start watching games. Like I start watching early games.
Yeah.
So that I don't miss as much, and I don't have to go catch up as much later, right? And especially Saturday, where all the good games were kind of early-ish.
Yeah.
And not a great night slate.
You need a Ben McLaughlin or a Greg Sharp, because when you walk in, the TVs are just.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's incredible. Like, it's a thing.
So I usually set up.
Hey, that TV there, like.
Yeah.
Right there.
Just to be a part of the strategic planning, we're spoiled.
You guys have better TV setups than we do.
Yeah.
Like the TVs in the press, and I'm not complaining. It's just what it is, right? Are like, especially if you're in the front row like I am, they're very high. So you don't have, like, I'd be looking like this to try and watch.
So the only guys that can really see the TVs above us are either B-Mac or Coatney.
Yeah.
I mean, but Sharpie has his computer,
mm-hmm.
and that dude can multitask. So it's like, I don't even know what he's like markering and checking off. He is a whiz, but I can't afford to be too distracted up there.
Yeah, so I'll bring up a game on my computer, and then if there's another good one going on, I'll bring another one up on my phone, and I'll kind of do like a mini picture-in-picture with my phone and computer screen.
Yeah.
So I can keep up with.
So what time do you get there now?
For 2:30 games, I try and be in my seat by 11.
Wow, really?
Yeah. Well, because I don't want to miss the 11 o'clock games.
No, I got you.
So I try and be in. I wasn't this Saturday. I was.
Are you surprised that SC
because I
got
talked
the
to TK?
Are you surprised that SC got the 3 o'clock kick?
No, that's what we thought it was going to be. We
Yeah.
thought mid-afternoon when Sasha was asking us about it. Because it's not, 5-4 versus 4-5 is not, like, I get the helmets are sexy, but in terms of, like, you're not going to do an 11 o'clock game in LA probably.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not going to be big enough for a night game on NBC unless you're just going on helmets.
What's the attendance? 30?
I would say under 50. Yeah. Because capacity on things like 100, right?
Roughly.
Yeah. So, it's going to be less than half full, I think. And half of those are probably going to be Nebraska fans.
Are they?
I think
There's a huge Californians for Nebraska contingency.
There are. And I think people planned this as a trip before the season because it's LA. And they're like, hey, it's November. Let's go take a vacation to a warm weather in November. No, not if it was the sushi thing. We have one of the best sushi chefs in Omaha right here, or in the country right here in Omaha.
Yeah, that is true.
Shout out Yoshitomo. But
100 and Koji.
And Koji, yeah. I think I might prefer Koji, but I think I just
both fire.
I think I just like going to One Pacific Place more than I like going to Benson. But that's just a personal
Fire!
That's just a personal
No,
preference.
it's Countryside.
Countryside, that's what it is. One Pacific Place is the other one. Countryside. That's right. I forgot. It's right across from Westside. You know.
Yeah, Trader Joe guy.
I forget the names of the places.
God.
You got One Pacific Place. You got Regency. You got Countryside Village.
I don't make enough.
But no, I appreciate the. I think a lot of people
will go
made those plans before. Like, I don't think people were making a ton of plans after the 3-game losing streak. I think it was, hey, what game do we want to go to this year? Let's get to. It was probably either Columbus or LA. I think those were the options people had.
Columbus was a little overrated.
Yeah, I've heard that in terms of the atmosphere.
Mm.
I heard it was good Nebraska contingent.
I didn't.
You didn't think so?
No, I can't speak to it.
Oh,
I don't
you
know.
didn't see. Gotcha. Okay.
I'm in that thing
early, and you can't. It's hard to tell.
Yeah,
like the Reds kind of blend together a little bit. In
I couldn't.
Columbus.
I have zero clue.
But from our crew, the Hurrdat crew, it seemed like it was a good Nebraska contingent. I think people like the sort of history and
of the stadiums.
Yeah, that the Ohio State sort of reminds them of Memorial Stadium a little bit.
Of the mythical, like, kind of aura.
Yeah.
Aura.
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 Just knock it off.
Uruguay.
Don't you hear me? I'm quaking.
Columbus greater than Ann Arbor.
You think so?
Yeah. Now we'll see.
For the mystique?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now in 6.
Is Ann Arbor a better atmosphere?
No.
Because you weren't stunned by Columbus's atmosphere either.
But they at least were having a good time. Like when we walked
Michigan's
there,
we got
out of the vehicle at 7,
mm-hmm.
and there was plenty of tailgating going on. Like we walked through multiple setups.
Yeah.
So it wasn't really like that at Ann Arbor. Although in Ann Arbor, it should have been better because, like, I flew private late with AC,
mm-hmm.
and they like dropped me off right at the last minute.
Yeah.
So, you'd think there would have been more people.
Yeah.
But I'm sure it's a nice setup. It just wasn't loud in the stadium.
Yeah.
And the weather was miserable. I mean, it snowed that game.
Sure. Yeah, that makes it a little different.
I don't know. If it snows here during a game, that thing will be off the chain.
People get wild.
Yeah.
Well, it's Nebraska's built a little different.
I hope so.
They need to be.
Yeah, they do.
The fans are for sure.
Hey, I got to ask you
something
something about the CFP. If you're in the top 8, who's the most upset?
I mean, my gut was Ohio State.
Man, I think Indiana is pissed.
Yeah, I could see that.
Oh, was Signetti?
Here's the problem. Here's the thing with Indiana, though, and honestly, so the same thing with Ohio State is you go win the Big Ten championship, then you're fine. Like, you're going to get that bye. You're going to get where you're supposed to be.
So
if you just win the conference.
I think Indiana may be in a spot, though, where they have to play a certain way against Ohio State now. They're not going to – that poll lets me know that nobody's going to do them any favors because of that strength of schedule.
You know what made me mad? My guy's Army down at 25. Show some respect to my guy, Jeff Monken.
Yeah, well, ask BC what he thinks.
Put a little respect on his name.
You're wild, man. Does he know that you would, like, run his fan club?
Monken?
Yeah.
I don't know. I've never met him.
No, see if we can make that happen.
I'm just a fan.
Kind of weird.
We'll be back with Brian Christopherson from Husker 24/7 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio. Here is Husker 24/7 senior writer, Brian Christopherson.
Yeah, you got guys and walking into Ace Hardware without their shirts on.
Brian Christopherson.
We got a pretty good sewing circle in this state.
Brian Christopherson.
To me, it's like crunch time, baby.
Here is Brian Christopherson.
I think my job's always to consider everything. I think part of that is, what are the problems? What are the issues? It's looking at everything. I think one of the first things I'm doing this week is, I have a lot of friends in the business, had some outside people kind of come in and look at, hey, tell me what you see. I think that's probably least in my history, one of the best things you can do is just have a fresh set of eyes look at it. And so I'm going to have some people that I trust look at both us on offense and on defense, and kind of look at what we're doing, and then go from there.
Kicking off hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We're joined now by Brian Christopherson from Husker 24/7. What's up, BC?
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Hi, how are things?
What's that?
I said, hi, how are things?
Things are okay.
Good.
Good to be on the show with you guys. Always appreciate it.
Yeah, BC.
I heard your last segment. You were talking about how I never talk in the press box and stuff. So I was thinking how I gotta get out of my shell a little bit more, probably.
Very businessy, BC. It's okay.
I'm not really as social as a lot of people,
and that's
are
okay
up there,
too. Like
you know?
I do the same drive-by every week. I come say hi to you three, and I keep it moving. Brunch usually gets the last of the jokes, because I think you guys sit in order of your game day humor too. Shafe is kind of the least jovial. You're in the middle. You're kind of the second least jovial, and Brunt's is last, and he's he'll at least crack like a wry one. It's probably a burn of some sort, but it's usually funny. Yeah. Is that kind of accurate?
Yeah, it's probably true. I'm an introvert in a profession where that's probably not usually the trait. That's what I've always thought. I really liked writing, when I was coming up, and so it was more that part. But then it's like, oh yeah, you gotta really talk to people too, and like have conversations, and like be into the jibber jabber, about what's this and that. But
it's the jibber jabber.
Yeah. So I'll work on that.
Jibber jabber. BC. All right. Before we get to the guts, right? Like, what'd you think of the CFP? Interesting. Wait and see. Like, I know you're a 90 over 75 guy anyway, so you're like, yeah, it's fine. But like, what'd you think?
You know what? I looked at it for the first time 3 minutes ago. That's honest to goodness.
No way.
True story. I mean, there was other distractions last night with other stuff, so I just didn't. I didn't dive into it until a few minutes. I didn't even dive into it, so I shouldn't even speak. I saw Indiana's at 8 or 9, right?
8. Yep. Huh. And they're behind 3 Big Ten teams.
They're making the Hoosiers prove it.
Isn't
really
that something?
Yeah, I guess that's my take. I think I'd have Indiana a couple spots higher. I mean, they've handled business like you're supposed to. You got to give them their due so far. But
I was terrified to hear the folks from Westwood say that Indiana was the best team they played, and I mean the consensus.
Yeah, that was.
Have you looked at UCLA's schedule?
Yeah, exactly. That was one of those things that popped up, and when you're heading into that Nebraska UCLA game about the type of challenge Nebraska is going to have, and it also, we saw firsthand. If you're out of sorts just a little bit, Indiana's the type of team that can run it up on you in a hurry. So I would say they were probably a little bit undersold in that first poll. With my first glimpse at it, saw Ohio State was 3. Beyond that, I was kind of like Big Ten scanning, and then I left it there. So that's what I got right now.
BC, if you're sitting there and you're, let's say, I don't know, let's say you're Texas at 5.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They're interesting.
Are you feeling some kind of way that you're looking around and you're like, wait a second, BYU gets a bye?
I feel like Texas 3 weeks ago people thought was the best team in the country.
They did, until Georgia.
And now it's like, it's like they're 5 by default. People would want to make them 55 if they could.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to unsee what Georgia did to them.
Yeah. 5's okay with me for now. I mean, I think they're probably going to end up in the top 4 when it's all said and done, and it'll play itself out. But that's fair for me for now. But yeah, I still think they could be one of the most dangerous teams in the playoff, no question. Ohio State, they're interesting to me. I think they still have their flaws that could get exposed late in the year, but you got to give them credit for the way, they got booed in their own stadium when they were playing Nebraska.
Crazy.
And they showed a certain mentality to come back the next week, take their lessons from that. It's obviously a different level than Nebraska's at right now as for what they're going for. But I mean, there's an example there of, you take your licks and you figure some stuff out through those situations, and hopefully the next week you're better from it. So I think you look around college football and everybody's sort of got their adversity that they've got to battle through. And obviously here in Lincoln, Nebraska's got their own kind too.
BC, I'm guilty of this. Even though real time during yesterday's show, I said, I think Coach Rule told you exactly what you need to know. And I kind of walked through it sequentially about from the players, the coaches, like he'll do anything accountability wise. Then the 8:50 news dump happens. And I was like, yep, that's kind of what I was talking about. But I wasn't sure what it was going to be. Full disclosure, I went back and listened to Monday and then watched yesterday play out. If I wanted to get a better snapshot, or if we wanted to get a better snapshot, would you go back and listen to Monday's presser, then play out yesterday's events to try to guess what's going to happen? Because that's what I'm trying to do, and I'm like, I don't know, man. I may have just confused myself.
No, I mean, I think people could. I mean, the gist of the Monday thing was, if I feel it, everybody feels it, and whatever it takes, I'm going to do. That's what's required here at the University of Nebraska, and so you're going to turn over every stone, basically. And so I don't think. I mean, he already had told us on Monday. There was some fresh set of eyes that were looking over things, and people could have probably maybe pieced together at least one of the names, or even both of them, honestly, that were revealed yesterday. So I don't think it should have been the most stunning thing. The thing I'd add about that is it's not like these are guys who a lot of the coaches on the staff don't already sort of know or have a connection with. It's not like someone's coming in from the outside that like Marcus Satterfield doesn't know Holgorsen. I mean, remember Holgorsen was like in town when Nash Hutmaker was wrestling that one time, and there was a big commotion about it, like in the off season. So this is a guy that I think the staff knows and can give some insights that they can appreciate. And obviously Phil Snow's been connected with Rule a long time too. So I think you got to throw in that part. These aren't just like names that are out of left field to a lot of the guys over there in the building.
BC, as the news comes down yesterday about Holgorsen specifically, not just being kind of a new set of eyes, but actually being hired, I guess right. I don't want to ask any leading questions here. So just how did you process that? Obviously, we talked about Monday not being surprised that some things were done, but how did you process the fact that they actually brought a guy on staff for a role that, as they said, will evolve throughout the season?
Yeah. Well, the first part of processing it is to not get on, as they say in the office space, to jump to conclusions, Matt, about what it's going to mean into next year necessarily. A guy like that, if he's going to be around and in town, give him a title. Yeah. And I would expect that he would have some serious input and, that would evolve through the rest of the season. So I guess I wasn't really surprised by it. I mean, it's definitely a big headline here, and I understand all that. And if people are going to talk about it and always sort of get ahead to next year and, okay, what does that mean for this guy and all that? But I don't want to jump past steps. I think the key now is what can they do like in these next 3 weeks with those guys in the building? What sort of information can they help the current guys who are in their full-time roles process? And how can you get better from it? What kind of staples can you find maybe within your offense? Or maybe, as Rule said Monday, a key part was, a big thing is examining maybe the game planning aspect. It's not necessarily the the play calling, he said, that he necessarily has a problem with. It's like, okay, maybe we need to get under the hood with the game planning a little bit. And I think that's where a guy like Dana Holgerson, who's done it for so long at a lot of different places and been a head coach with it and had a lot on the line, that he can help. And he, you know what, he can also, I think, help if the coaches receive it right, as being a guy who he's been under scrutiny before in his career. He's felt what it's like to be in that position where there's some arrows coming at you when a season's a little off the track. So I think that can be useful too.
Yeah, it's interesting listening to you talk, just from my experience, because I think sometimes fans, we think, well, if you're this position, you should do it like this, or this is kind of the perception of how it's done. And I'll just take it, since you brought up game planning, I always think of play calling sheets. I've seen maybe not hundreds. I've seen close to probably hundreds of play calling sheets. Everybody does it differently, right? Like first and longs and second and mediums and third and longs and red zones and pet plays and versus blitzes. And I think it's important to understand, if we really want chemistry and camaraderie of being efficient on one side of the ball, it has to be mirrored. However you do that has to be mirrored to what your players are capable of. I don't ever want to undersell that those little things that we take for granted, absolutely matter when you want to look at a team's efficiency.
Yeah.
It's different for everybody, right? I guarantee you, Monken's play calling sheet would look different than, let's say, Chip Kelly's, right? But Chip Kelly's play calling sheet has to not only reflect him, but it also has to reflect his team too. It's different.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. And I mean, a new set of eyes is, maybe you go through it with the OC and the guys and be like, okay, what's your process even within the game? How are you getting to certain stuff with what you're calling? And, this is how I've done it in the past. And, you can take it or leave it and all that. But I can understand where it can always be a challenge when you add another person into the kitchen, but it doesn't have to be a problem by any means. It can definitely be just a positive if people receive it right, and the people that you're bringing in are the kind of guys who just want to, take in the information and then offer a little bit of insight here and there that can be helpful. So I think, if nothing else, on Monday, walking out of there, it was clear. Rule, I never thought this, but for those people who are like, oh, he's just going to sit in place and these are his buddies and all that, you couldn't have walked out of that press conference with the take that he's just going to sit still if he doesn't think something's right. He's going to prop open that hood, and they're going to look at everything they can. He knows what's at stake, and that's what I took out of Monday's press conference. And his guys who he's coached with a long time over there know that too. They know that Matt Rule's going to be an intense guy to get this fixed and do what it takes and expect results. So I don't think, some of these, if there's this perception that they're just going to status quo just because, I never thought that was going to be the case. But I say that also, again, I'm not jumping to conclusions about what's going to happen yet, but everybody's got to step up, and I like that it was twofold. He said that includes the players. It's not just an out because everybody's talking about stat. If you catch a pass in space, don't just fall down and get 5 yards. I thought of a particular play.
Isn't that something how he said he just slid that in?
Yeah. One of my favorite guys too on the team, his personality, Emmett, had a play where he caught it and it was like, man, he just fell down there 5 yards, and I just thought there was a lot more there. And you can go through the film and everybody on it should see stuff like, yeah, that's not going to fly. There's guys on obviously the bubble screens is like, yeah, my particular work on that play is not good enough. And so I like that everybody's got to take responsibility. And I don't know about you, Damon, but I think a lot of guys too, and you got to kind of get this weight off your shoulders. They do feel pressure also when a coach is on the hot seat or when there's a lot of talk about a coach, and you feel like you've got to play up to help that coach a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's something those guys are internalizing too, that they got to work through.
So, BC, Sal brings up a point that I think a lot of fans are thinking. He said his worry is that there's too many cooks in the kitchen and lots of voices and differing opinions could cloud things. As opposed to having some delicate egos. And I think I'm curious to get your thoughts. When you have guys, let's just address the elephant in the room, right? If you're talking like wide receivers or your offensive coordinator with Garrett or Satter, a lot of these coaches in particular, outside of maybe White and Butler.
Yeah.
They're guys that relationship-wise have been treated well, been respected, been given opportunities. Don't you think, like, building this staff to kind of set the culture, he picked guys that could handle if something like this had to occur?
Yeah, I think so. I think they're guys who,
that's my gut. That's my gut. That's kind of my gut reaction to that, because I get that concern, but it seems like he's got guys around him that are, if they're other-centered, they'll understand too.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think that's a problem. And these guys, they know too, like when it's got to be better. Like a coach knows,
that's good point.
this is a big time business, and this isn't at the level people are expecting. And this is going to be a time when there's adversity. There's going to be a lot of people saying this or that, or this guy should get lost. These guys are big boys. They know what goes with the territory, and so I think they're guys who can work through it. And one thing I really like about the coaching business, I've always found it to be one of the more respectful businesses as far as peers and how they deal with each other. Like, it's always like coach, they call each other coach. Everybody calls each other coach,
Yeah.
And there's just sort of this respect of being in the fraternity and not overstepping one's title in most cases. And so when I see something like the news that happened yesterday, Dana Holgerson, for all the positions he's held, he's part of that fraternity where they're always very respectful of, this guy's the offensive coordinator right now. This guy does this, and I'm just trying to help them in my current role.
That's
and
a
whatever
great
happens
point.
a month from now, that happens. But I really think it's one of those professions where guys, for the most part, respect those lanes that people have at that time. And that kind of goes with being in that job, you would know better than I, of course.
No, BC, that is a brilliant point. I go back to this thing where, Coach Frank was extending the opportunity to come coach. And I was so leery of kind of his prowess and respect that I was like, I don't want to rock the boat. I don't want, I'm telling you, coaches think like that.
Yeah.
Because they know what it's like to be under scrutiny, and
because almost all of them have been in the other position
or have been undermined. Right. Like I think that's a really, really astute observation, BC. I'm not surprised it came from you.
I can think of a funny example. When Michigan and Michigan State, when Harbaugh and D'Antonio were both there, they were really going at each other in different ways. And I remember they seemed like they couldn't stand each other, but in the press conference, Harbaugh was like, "Coach." He's talking about D'Antonio, and he keeps calling him coach. And I kind of like that. There's that little nice bit of respect that's attached, even when you can't stand a guy, sort of thing. So, I definitely think that's part of that goes with the job that we got to think of here.
Because I think to Sal's question and his point, I think especially with a guy like Coach Satterfield, like Coach Rule clearly has an understanding of his personality, right? So, when the first character traits that he talks about are his loyalty and his work ethic, those will be put on full display if it ever has to come to something like this, right? So I think he's kind of thought about that as now you never know until, poop actually hits the fan, but I do think he didn't put together his staff willy-nilly, right? Because
I don't.
He said it. Yeah, whatever today is, Monday. Remember, BC? He said, and it was interesting. And now I know what he meant when he said, "Coaches, I hope they'll come along with me. Players, I hope they'll come along with me. So that's not the first. We're hearing it for the first time, but he's told the coaches the same thing, right? He's probably said, "Hey, this is what I'm thinking. I have to shake some things up. Is everybody on board here? If not, speak now or forever hold your," or something like that. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of this. Yeah. That's what I went back and listened to on Monday. Like he told us when he said, "Coaches, I hope you're on board." Like that's what I think he meant, and maybe I'm reading too much into it.
No, I think you're right, and also having another guy in the building doesn't change the fact that Satterfield, Garrett McGuire, anybody already knew. It's like it's just got to be better. Like whether they're Dana Holgorsen were in town or he was consulting from a distance or not at all, the same pressure would still be applied right now, or you would certainly feel. So I don't know that it brings the temperature up really that much. I just think it's interesting. It's a coach with a definite resume, two coaches with big time resumes that are in town, and it just goes back to that theme. Whatever it takes, we're gonna he's saying we're gonna look at it, and if something's got to be addressed or be better or fixed or this has to change, we're gonna do it. But I see it as a positive, and I think he's got guys who understand Rule because they've coached with him 10, 15 years and aren't shocked by what's happening either.
BC, real quick, I have about 90 seconds here. What do you just think of the kind of philosophical fit with what we know about Dana Holgorsen and what Nebraska either is trying to or needs to do offensively to be successful?
Yeah, I just think he's a guy who, like, I don't expect he'll just overstep lanes or anything like that. But if these are when Satterfield or whomever puts in front of him, this is what we've got going here. This is what we're doing there. He obviously can have certain staples or things that he can suggest or tweaks that maybe could fit into what Nebraska is doing without any sort of overhauled philosophy of what's going on or anything like that. So I go back to that point. I just don't think guys in that profession are going to overstep boundaries much. And so I think it's going to be about what Nebraska has done or they can do well maybe the rest of the year with what they have or what's been in the playbook. And maybe there's a slight tweak here or there and just some ideas like that. So as far as like his overall philosophy of like what an offense would be and stuff like that, I'd almost put that in like the jump to conclusions, Matt, of like if there's something down the road with him, but I'm really interested how this team comes out after this week because it's a bye week in name only, that's for sure.
I appreciate your thoughtfulness, BC, man. Clutch.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
That's our guy, BC, from Husker 24/7. We will talk to our guy, Andy Kendy from KETV, coming up next here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. That's DBM Ravi, Lulla. We are joined now by Andy Kendy from KETV. What's up, AK?
Good morning, boys. How's it going?
AK, I feel like I just talked to you. Like, what is going on?
Did I just see you, DB?
Yeah, I think you did. I forgot. When we get off, I want you to check on my guy, Severe. Make sure he's good.
Okay.
I don't think he felt great last night, so I just want to make sure he's okay. And it would help coming from both of us.
Yeah, you know what? And I felt a little bit like the backup quarterback in those commercials, like a Case Keenum, ready to finish the job. But I felt confident in Michael, and Michael persevered, as he always does.
Right. Of all the backup quarterbacks, you're going with Case Keenum?
Well, he had to go with a guy that was coached by Dana Holgerson.
Oh, yeah. That's what you were thinking, right, AK? Like,
absolutely.
Is that what it was?
Fresh top of mind.
I feel like he just threw you a lifeline and you pounced. Like, is that what's going on here?
No question. How about that, guys? How about that?
Yeah, I was telling BC a couple of minutes ago, AK, I forced myself to go back and listen to Monday in a different light, even though I kind of felt like I knew what he was saying. I still didn't think it was going to be that quick. But Monday's press conference makes a ton of sense.
And I think it's in any walk of life. If you're struggling or if you're searching for answers, you lean on people that are close to you that's in your little inner circle. I've done that before when either looking for a candidate or maybe a different way of doing things. Of course, I'm going to lean on people that I've trusted and worked with over the years. So that part of it isn't surprising. What is surprising is the immediate hiring of offensive consultant role, and what kind of role, what does that mean, and what have you. And granted, we're still waiting for the official announcements, but all signs point to that. So I just think the immediacy of the move, I think, took me a little bit by surprise. But the fact that he brought people in to look, I don't have any issues with that. Now the issue is how is that kitchen gonna look with all those cooks? You know what I mean? What's the chain of command?
I think sometimes people just have to go get groceries. Sometimes people will do the dicing. Not everybody's gonna cook, my man. I don't worry about that.
And can I, the dirty little secret about kitchens here, right, is there's actually a lot of cooks in there, right? Like that's how restaurants work. Like you have a chef, you have a sous chef. Yeah. A lot of times you have an executive chef above the CDC, the chef de cuisine. Sure. You've got line cooks. You've got prep cooks. There's actually a lot of cooks in a kitchen. What matters is
he may or may not be married to an executive chef.
A little bit. But the point is, right, it only is a problem if there's confusion about who's in charge.
No question, right? And that's the question, right? So give me the little chain of command. So I'll be interested to see how this all shakes out. Usually bye weeks, you kind of put your feet up, you watch some college football, you exhale, and not this one. And to couple on this, the timing of this, guys, obviously, it doesn't take a genius to figure out. Matt Rule and his staff is going to be out on the road recruiting. So what is he selling his program? It's tough to sell your program if you're not in the midst of at least providing hope for some of these kids. And right now there's 18 points per game. That's what you're showing these kids. But if you go into their schools and say, hey, but look, this is what our vision is moving forward, X, Y, Z, at least offensively, I think you can sell that a little better too.
AK, when you're taking a look at, Michael was funny last night. He said the happiest guy on staff has got to be Ed Foley with everything that's going on. But he just kind of slid that in.
Yeah, he did.
But in fairness, there's some merit to that. But there's positives that you can point to in growth with bringing in outside influence, right? Whether it's adding a Maher who's been there all year, and as they learn to work together, and Coach White and Coach Butler's the new guys, if they've kind of grown together. There's a little bit of a track record of I can bring in somebody with differing or similar thoughts, and we can still work together. Right there's a little bit of a track record there.
No question. And here's the thing. And you go back go re-listen to Matt Rule's news conference Monday. He says, there's nothing I won't do to get this team better.
Yeah.
Get this team on the right track.
I looked at that as a warning. And I said that Monday, but I had no idea how quick it would be. It was already in play.
Without question. He tells you what he's going to do without telling you what he's going to do.
Yeah.
There's nothing I won't do to make this team better. And so he goes out and brings a person in. Okay, so they bring a person in mid-year in Brett Maher, a guy who's a resource, obviously, and that's kind of straightened the ship out, so to speak, with the kickers per se. So I don't really have a problem with this as long as everybody knows that the greater good is what's at stake here. And hey, I'm open to any ideas because obviously they need something to jumpstart this offense, which is loaded with weapons, and for whatever reason, the offense can't get on track.
No, wait, is it loaded with weapons? Because that's a good question. We were struggling, and I heard from 60% of the fan base.
Wide receivers can't get open.
Wide receivers can't get open. We don't have a good enough O-line. We don't like our running backs. So do we have talent?
Not get open because they're not winning one-on-one battles, or the receivers not getting open because they're not schemed properly. That's a valid argument.
I wasn't sure, AK.
Yeah, no, I think that's valid, and I think maybe we pumped too much life into this offense before we actually saw what they were going to be on the field. So there's no question that what this team is hearing from the outside world, if they're listening, is that people are frustrated when my neighbor, like my lifelong neighbor, Husker ticket holder, says, "Andy, I'm taking a break. I'm taking a break." I said, "What did you think about Saturday?" He goes, "Well, at least it didn't rain." That's what he said to me. Which I was like, "Damn, hey, that's a good way of putting it." Hey, at least it didn't rain. He's the ultimate optimist, and he says, "Listen, I'm not jumping off the bandwagon." He goes, "I just need a break." And so I think this bye comes at a good time for everyone to just kind of exhale, let's take a deep breath. You got 3 games left, 3 opportunities. If we've known anything about this college football season, is that really taking a line from the NFL. Any given Saturday these days, any team can beat anyone in college football. At least what it seems. It just depends on which team shows up for Nebraska. If that team that shows up in Columbus shows up in Los Angeles, there's going to be a ball game, no question. And I'm convinced Nebraska, if they play well, can beat Wisconsin. They can beat Iowa too. But Iowa's going to be the toughest out of the 3, in my opinion.
I got to give my man Ravi some credit. When I asked him about 3 weeks ago, SC hadn't even hit the skids yet. And I said, "Would you rather be USC or Michigan?" He said, "I don't know, man. Michigan's kind of a tough job. I don't know." And I'm going to ask you the question. Would you rather be USC right now or Michigan?
Oh, boy. And neither is not an option, right? Neither is not an option. I mean,
did you ever think we would be having this conversation in first week in November?
Not in a million years. No, not in a million years. And
Michigan won a national title last year.
I would think I would much rather not be Michigan.
That's what I said.
Are you serious?
That's what I said.
Yeah, I think Michigan, just because they're coming off that. Well, but here's the thing. Because they won that national championship, people are like, well, at least we had last year. Where USC is like, what did we do with this coach hiring and all this money we threw at them? And look at where they're at. They're sub 500. I mean, they can't win a game. So I think there's arguments to be made each way. I just think that I don't know how – well, I do know how a team can win the national championship one year and then be so average the next because of changes, coaches, portal, all the like. Take your pick.
AK, what do you got planned for your bye week? I assume you're gonna be out some high school football.
No, volleyball.
AK,
volleyball.
Volleyball, baby.
My bad.
High school volleyball begins today, actually. So we have first round quarterfinals in Class B, C1, and A today. Championship games are on Saturday. But yeah, we got. It's gonna be weird because Operation Football this Friday is gonna be quarterfinals, of course, as we know. But there's also semifinals for volleyball. We're gonna try to do them both justice. So we're going to have people all over the place. Good thing that everybody's in and we're at full strength. So that's a good thing.
Hey, AK, more surprised that Nebraska is on such a roll in volleyball that Texas has lost 3 straight at the house.
Well, I'm going to stay positive and focus on Nebraska. In fact, Nebraska's rolling. They're going to win. If they play like that, you can book your trip to Louisville. That we know for sure almost.
AK, we appreciate it. As always, enjoy your bye week. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, boys. Talk to you soon.
Coming up next, we'll have more Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We're back here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla, reminding you to get out to unionomaha.com to get your tickets for this Saturday's semifinal match. It is a 4 p.m. start, and your Union Omaha is playing for a place in the final. Make sure you get your tickets at unionomaha.com. Joining us now on
why is that funny?
Because every time I think about it, I'm like, man, that's like a 20, 25-year-old commercial now.
Yeah, I'm old.
No, I know. I remember it too. I'm just saying it's a funny. We got Kool-Aid Steve on the Hurrdat hotline. Steve, what's going on, man?
Oh, I'm just in the best mood.
Oh, Lord.
And I've been warned that that's about all I can say about that. I'll let you guys decide why I'm in such a good mood.
Big Dana Holgerson guy?
Pardon me?
Is it Big Dana Holgerson guy?
Yeah, I don't think that's it, but go ahead, Steve.
All right. I heard that we're hiring a consultant.
Yeah.
What's he being paid?
I don't know. It hasn't been disclosed. What difference does it make, Steve?
Well, because it ought to come out of our head coach's salary.
Well, it might.
Why in the hockey sticks do we need a consultant to tell them what everybody else can see?
Oh, Lord.
Now, I worked for the city, and when the people in charge were getting heat from the public, they immediately hired a consultant. Well, why can't we get the snow pushed off? Well, why can't we get the potholes done? Well, let's hire a consultant. If you're paying somebody to do a job, hold his feet to the damn fire, and if you can't do the job that you're getting paid to do, then guess what? Hit the bricks. I mean, I cannot believe my friends called me and told me that we're going to hire a consultant. That is so pushing the accountability down the road that I cannot believe it. And whatever is that guy's salary is ought to come directly out of rule.
All right, Kool-Aid Steve. Listen, let me ask you a question, champ. Why can't somebody, and I get it, right? Because I think you weren't super happy with the city when you left, right? So at least you're consistent, right? You're not saying anything you don't believe, right? No, right?
Yeah.
I'm just lending credibility to your consistency. But
yeah,
why can't somebody say, hey, this has worked for me before. I think this, and this. Tell me what you think. Because I think we're getting hung up on the word consultant when he may just be getting a trial run to see if this is ultimately something he can be good at.
Well, why? Okay, why do we do that after 3 straight losses? If
do you know why
everything was going great when we were playing the Patsies?
Now listen,
everybody was on
hey. I'm not gonna let you bring your personal feelings into being objective. I'm gonna stay objective. I know you didn't really love Nebraska. I get all your I get what you thought about their schedule, but let's just stay right here above board. If Nebraska thought that they could still have their goals intact, I could see them taking time to see if they could get there. They couldn't, so they made a decision, and now they're going to see if they can if their goals are still attainable. What if it was just that simple?
Well, yeah. This is what I think. Now, you know, we still have that wager going on.
Yeah, what was
Ravi?
the number? Yeah, what was the number again? It was low.
I thought it was just a bowl game.
It was a bowl game,
I think
right?
It was just a bowl game, right?
Yeah. And still out there. All we need is one more. Just
knock it
Guess
off.
What?
I sent you your pizzas, and I had to foot the whole
everybody
bill.
They got everybody in the car pumping their feet to get to the finish line.
Yeah.
Okay? And I believe I told you guys that I didn't think Raiola would be here 2 years. Now, I think Raiola is an astounding talent and has played so much better than what I figured he would. Okay? It's not his fault. Our receivers are well above what I thought they would be. Running backs, okay. Now, offensive line has been, and I have to watch my language. So
well, you can say
anything
once.
Just can't promise we won't dump you.
So piss poor that the last game, I'm screaming at the TV. Why wouldn't you just pull all 5 of them and put the second string in there for a series or 2 and see maybe if that gave you a spark, right? Okay, that's one issue that I have. Next issue I have, and I believe I brought this up last year when in my opinion, we forfeited our future. Last year, I thought Harburg, we were just as close last year as we are this year to getting our 6th win, right?
Yeah.
We ran that kind of read option last year. He's a runner. He's not a thrower. And I said, okay, we're changing our offensive philosophy, and we're going with 80% pass, 20% run now. who's going to be our backup? Because if he gets hurt, well, then what? Okay, we saw the results with Harburg at quarterback. But if you cannot run the ball and you have more penalty yards than rushing yards, you're not going to be in very many games. And the close games that you need to win, this is my third point, you better have a pretty good field goal kicker, right? When the rubber hits the road on close games, you need a good kicker. And on fourth down, we're 4 of 18 this year. Now, if you're only making it less than 25% of the time, punt the ball or kick the field goal. Everybody sees it. Why do you need to pay a consultant to tell you what the heck to do?
All right, Steve. I appreciate the call. I still think, I know you're going to ask me, why do I get along
No,
with
can I
him?
just address some like just blatant falsehoods that he said?
What?
He said it's 80% pass, 20% run. Nebraska's run the ball more than they pass this year.
No, I know.
That's a fact.
Yeah.
It's not even close to 80-20. It's not even 50-50. They've run the ball more than they've passed this year. Okay, so let's start there. Like, I'm not just – he can have whatever opinions he wants. Everybody can. That's fine. I'm not just going to sit here and let people say that things that are provably not true. That's not going to fly. Sorry. They also don't have more penalty yards than they have total yards. That's not – or rushing yards. That's not accurate. It's not a real thing. They do not average 125 yards of penalties per game. That is false. Okay, so let's start there with things that just aren't true.
Okay, I think – yeah,
Okay?
that's good, yeah.
Another thing that's not true, and this is less provable unless you have eyeballs, the offensive line has not been the worst part of this offense.
I'm still mortified that people keep thinking that.
That is objectively not true. I like, listen, I know you don't like – I know people don't know what to point to when they're like, oh, I don't love the running game. That's fine. Guess what? Maybe the running backs just need to be better. Maybe they need to find holes, right? How many times this year have you thought Dylan Raiola doesn't have enough time? How many times have you thought that?
I mean, not a ton.
Not a ton, right? You know why? Because the offensive line's been pretty good. The offensive line's been pretty good. Now, there's other issues. Could they be better? Sure. But the offensive, like, if you get the other position groups to do their job, we're not having a discussion about the offensive line. Also, just like let's entertain his line change idea here for a second. You want your 4-string left tackle to play? That's what we're saying. We want the 4-string left tackle to play because we think that's going to go better. We think that's a good idea. We were wringing our hands when Teddy Prohaska got hurt back in the summer, but now we want the 4-string left tackle to play. That's the answer. So his opinion's whatever. That's fine. Like, great, cool. Be mad about consultants. Okay, sure. I'm pretty sure he's not footing the bill for it, so I'm not sure why he cares what he's getting paid. But whatever. It's not like this is coming out of your tax dollars. It's not. Dana Holgerson's not getting paid out of your property taxes. That's not a real thing, right? Somebody from 1890 or somewhere else is like, hey, we got a little extra cash here. We're going to give some money to Dana Holgerson to be a consultant. Cool. If you contribute to 1890, then maybe you are footing the bill a little bit. But opinions be what they are. I'm just not going to let people come on here and say things that are just objectively not true. 311 run attempts, 295 pass attempts. Is that 80-20?
No.
Okay, just wanted to check.
I think we're kind of hung up on but I get his history too. I'm not going to vouch for what he said. I mean,
he might be right about the team.
Very unhappy with so there's just things philosophically.
Sure.
He believes about wasting money.
That's fine.
Okay.
I get that.
Which is
not a problem.
Okay. So, but I do think we're hung up on the term consultant. I think it's
what if we called it an analyst? Would we feel better?
You could say, yeah.
What if we did it secretly like we did Brett Maher, apparently?
That wasn't. And somebody said middle of the season. It
wasn't. No, it was start of the year.
It wasn't even middle of the season. But anyway, yeah, so whatever you call him. What if we don't see Holgerson?
Yeah.
Like, what if we don't really know that he's there?
Good or bad?
I don't.
Right?
Only they know what his role is. Who cares what we call him?
Yeah. What if the offense just gets better?
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, what if the last 3 games the offense looked markedly better? Then is it okay to pay the consultant?
That is not the segment I wanted to have.
Not even a little bit. But you can't just come on here and say they're passing the ball 80% of the time. That's not a real thing.
You're still my dude, Ravi.
All right, coming up
You
next,
good?
we got Mitch Sherman.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We have a great thing going here, and we have recruits all across the country that want to come here, and there'll be kids lining up. If we said, "Hey, we'll take you," there'll be kids lining up to come here. So I don't worry about any of that. I care deeply about my players. I care deeply about their character and their growth, and if they're good enough. Some guys, maybe if they want to play, they should go down a level. But if a little bit of adversity causes you to turn and run, then you don't see me running. I'm not running. So we have to show progress.
Kicking off hour number 3 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR, and Lincoln. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We are joined now by our friend Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. What's up, Mitch?
Hello, guys. Good morning.
I almost called you Mitch Richmond earlier today, and
I mean, that would be a compliment.
I think that's a huge compliment. So, no, I don't know. I haven't thought about Mitch Richmond in the longest time. I have no idea why that almost happened. I just felt like
K-State on the mind?
Probably more Kings, Sacramento Kings, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. It's college basketball season, so I thought maybe this was like a Big 12 thing.
I was explaining to him that Sprewell's emergence made Mitch available for Sacramento.
Okay. That's delving into an area of NBA waters that I don't often go to.
There are just sometimes things come up that like have zero
to do with anything.
Yeah, zero. But let's speak to the contrary. Did you be honest, shoot me straight here, Mitch. Did you go back and listen to Monday's presser post yesterday's happenings? Or did you have it kind of cued in your head and then compare it and contrast?
I listened to it, yeah. I always do that just for work. It helps you digest it a second time because with Rule, and I don't necessarily do it with all of the players when they talk on Tuesday or even always the coordinators, but with Rule, he generally packs a lot of words and a lot of thoughts into his answers. So I think it's beneficial if you want to get the real sense of what he had to say, to listen to it a second time. And I just need to, as I structure my content coming out of it. Otherwise I'll miss stuff if I just go all off of memory.
If you were going to do an order of operations for the press conference in conjunction with folks being in town, how would you sort through accountability, action, what else? Continuity. Like, what would your order of operations be after you heard what you heard on Monday and then see what's kind of coming down the pike here?
My number 2 things that, and you summarize this in different words, but my number 2 things that I took away after sitting there and being a part of that press conference and then listening to it back were, one, that Matt Rule says he is willing to do whatever it takes to get this train on the tracks by the end of November. And that 2, he's going to have a different mindset, at least publicly, about handling player accountability and making sure that the players are shouldering their load in the same way or in what is the correct way as it relates to the load that's expected of the coaches.
So, Mitch, do you look at this at all? Do you look at this at all as just a version of Rule holding the coaches accountable the same way he's trying to hold the players accountable with bringing in consultants here?
He's been doing that since day one, holding the coaches accountable. I mean, that's never, and you go back to the beginning of his time as a coach, if you base it on what everybody has told me about Matt Rule and my conversations with him, like holding coaches accountable has never been any kind of an issue. Like he's demanding. He's a hard coach to work for. He expects a lot out of his assistant coaches, and not just his assistant coaches, but his staff. And some of who are not paid like assistant coaches. So this is an extension of, like, this player accountability stuff, I think, is an extension of that. It's like, hey, if you're a part of this program, then you need to be held accountable for what happens out there on the field. And they do have a policy, or there's a way of life within his program that's carried over to Nebraska where they don't throw players under the bus. Like, players can make mistakes, and that's going to be dealt with in an internal way. They're going to work on in a constructive manner to try to correct that, but he's not going to go out publicly and criticize a player. And I don't think that's what he's doing now. He's just acknowledging the fact that, like, it's not all on the coaches. Like, it's always been tough to be a coach for Matt Rule, and it still is, but it's also not necessary. It doesn't need to be like a walk in the park to be a player for him either. And I'm not saying it has been a walk in the park, but like, I think he's trying to just like stress that, like bring that up, like say it in public. So it reinforces what he's saying behind closed doors, that like you have to answer for inefficiencies as a player, just as it has always been the case with coaches.
Yeah, I'm with you there, because I didn't have any problems. And I would, it doesn't matter if this is the coach or the player, or the parent for that matter. If he says, hey, I'm happy to talk to any parents, we can have this conversation. But when we roll tape, like, you better play and you better be productive. Like, I don't, and people, in one vein he said this and he's throwing guys. No, he's setting the standard for what's going to be acceptable and what isn't. I don't care which hat I'm wearing. I don't have a problem with any of that. Right.
I think what people are worried about publicly, and this is a new thing in the last 5 years, is that if players get criticized, they're just going to leave.
Oh, that's okay.
And rules, right. And rules answer to that is, all right, well, if then unfortunately, no offense, you're not the guy that we need in this program.
Yeah,
I loved it.
Probably not for you.
I'm with you, Mitch. I think that's good. That's a good point. Because isn't that the guys you want to ride with?
Yeah, guys who handle criticism well, guys who are willing to step up and take responsibility, accountable players. It all sounds really good until you have, a 4 or 5 star talent, whatever it is, who's like, yeah, this is not the place for me because I got criticized. And then no matter what, even if the coaches are like, all right, we'll be okay, there's still going to be a lot of blowback publicly. Like, there's going to be players who go. There have to be players who go this year. Like, look at the roster. Look at what's coming with roster limits in 2025. Like, this is going to be a huge season unless they like delay the implementation of roster limits, because they're not providing any guidance here when we're 1 month away from the time when everything is done to structure your roster. But anyway, I'm going down a different road there. But like, there's going to be tremendous change and turnover this year. So like, let's set the standard right now, like among the public, like don't freak out because people are going to leave.
So let's stay right there for a second, because I think we can tie two things into one. Because I think what happens is, and I hope this happens with Nebraska and every place else, the unintended consequence of NIL, I felt like, was for the players aspect of it. Because I always want you to be able to own your own name, right? There's a reason why you can't leave the hospital typically without. It's important, right? Your name is your own. But it also makes players accountable too. So, but now as I'm watching this thing, this is going to force schools to be better spenders too, right? I'm all for fiscal savvy. So if you want to find measures to hold players accountable while you're trying to navigate the NIL dollars, roster limits is could be an important part of that too, right? You just have to be better spenders. And if you're not getting a rate of return on your NIL dollars, hey, that's cool. You can be on somebody else's tab. Let's try it again. The part that is so slow, though, Mitch, is how can you force somebody to set limits when you haven't given them any guidelines, and signing day is December 4th? That's what I'm saying. You're less than 30 days out.
That's what I'm saying. And because unless the stuff has all been communicated to personnel staffs and coaching staffs behind the scenes from the NCAA about how the 105-man limit is going to be structured and what's going to happen around it. Like, we know the number 105, but we don't know anything beyond that. We don't know about injured reserve. We don't know about like a taxi squad. We don't know about off-season limits if they're different from the limit in the season. All of that stuff, all of that guidance has to be known before you get to the month of December if you're Nebraska. Now, if you're Illinois, and I just use them as random example, I don't know what Illinois' roster looks like as far as the numbers, but if let's just say you're plain old, regular, successful Power 4 program, and if you're Ole Miss, it's probably not as big of an issue, because you're close to 105, 110 right now. So you're not going to have to do a whole lot as far as making change. But Nebraska obviously is not anywhere near 105 right now. So it has a lot of change to do, and it needs to know how many players it can bring in so it can so it can make preparations for how many have to go. And if we're getting close to December, when most of the wheels are set in motion, and we don't know that, it's a very difficult road to navigate.
We're talking with Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. Mitch, let's kind of move back to this year here and what we've got coming up in the next 3 games. Do you expect to see anything tangible on the field as a result of kind of bringing in some new eyes?
Well, I think the biggest thing is just going to be able to have like the fresh voice, like the outside perspective. In the case of on the offensive side, where it seems to be more pronounced. Well, definitely the struggles are more pronounced, but I mean the change and like the impact of Dana Holgorsen coming in, I think, is more pronounced than what they're doing on the defensive side. I mean, he has an official role as a consultant, and I think we all understand that there's the possibility that Dana probably doesn't do this unless, you know, he's also kind of scouting this to see if it can be a part of his future. You know, whether Rule wants it as a part of his future or not, like they're at least going to explore the possibilities probably on both sides, because he wants to rehabilitate his career. He wants to get back to a place where he's running a big time offense or the head coach in a program. And, you know, he sees this as a potential step. So that needs to be said, I think, out front. And with that, knowing that, yeah, I mean, they're not going to change the offense. Like, he's not going to start running like the run and shoot or the, you know, the 5 wide that Holgorsen did, that Holgorsen ran at West Virginia or Texas Tech or Oklahoma State. Like, you know, his spread evolved over the years, and he ran the ball more at Houston and had to, because just, you know, Mike Leach's original system, like it changed as defenses figured out how to defend that. And Dana did a pretty good job of changing with it, and has always had a good offense and produced, you know, he developed and tutored a lot of great quarterbacks. All that said, you know, if that's going to happen at Nebraska, like it's down the road. I think what he can do now is just kind of like maybe just like sprinkle in an idea, or say, you know, just a fresh set of eyes, I think, can help. It can even, like, and this is a strange thing to say because you would think that like his presence would like ratchet up the pressure on Satterfield, but I think it can kind of just like relieve some of the pressure, because if it's handled right, if Rule manages this right. And by doing that, he has to just be honest with Marcus Satterfield about what's going on and like why Dana's standing over there on the other side of the room or right next to him. But as long as that's managed right, then I think it can potentially relieve some of the pressure on Sat, because it's like, hey, it's not all on me. Like we're going to get multiple voices here who have experience running successful offenses. You know, you throw Glenn Thomas into the mix, and like we're going to throw everything we got at this and try to make it work as best as possible with what we're dealing with here in November. And, you know, I don't think the changes, whatever changes happen against USC and Wisconsin and Iowa, would necessarily be dramatic. But I think there could be some change, and maybe just like fixing a couple things can like free up the players to make the plays that they're being asked to make right now and not making.
Mitch, you said a name that a lot of people don't bring up unless it's in StreamYards or on message boards. Are you surprised that? And maybe it's just because we don't know exactly what he's doing, so we don't talk about it. But you're the first person to bring up Glenn Thomas out loud in a media setting in a long time. Are you surprised at the vagueness or the just the lack of questions that come up with Coach Thomas and the role that he plays?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's kind of by design with Rule. Like, he tries to keep the spotlight and the pressure off of his assistant coaches so they can just go and do their jobs and not. I mean, the coordinators face pressures that, and again, like that's also a decision. Like he could keep his coordinators out of the spotlight too. But when you get to coordinator level in Rule's world, you know, as is obviously the case with Tony White, he wants to push these guys to become head coaches. And, you know, while I think we know that's not the direction right now that Marcus Satterfield is pointed, like he's still in a coordinator role. And so he's going to be out there talking and in the spotlight. So we tend to talk about him in these conversations much more than Glenn Thomas. But as far as like the way the quarterback play is going, and, you know, we've seen regression there as Dylan, you know, works through things and has his freshman moments and, you know, throwing interceptions. And I think we've seen his confidence shaken. We've seen, you know, some health stuff that he's been managing. Yeah, there's not a lot of talk about Thomas. I think it's by design. Like it's hard to talk about him when he's not out there and nobody's really bringing him up. Dylan's brought him up a few times, like, hey, I work on this with Coach Thomas or that with Coach Thomas. But I mean, same thing with EJ Barthel or Terrence Knighton or Rob Dvorak. Like it's just kind of out of sight, out of mind a little bit during the season. That's probably not right, but
I just would think with a position as high profile as quarterback, where there's it would
not like Mario Verduzco in the old days where he'd be out there.
I mean, that was
weeks.
wild,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like
because they put him out there to talk and like he said things, and sometimes people agreed and sometimes people disagreed, and it generated a lot of conversation.
Mitch, you think it's possible that Dana Holgerson's here as much to help with the quarterback coaching as he is with the offensive coordinator?
Yeah, anything's possible. I think that's possible. I think that maybe they didn't even bring him in with the idea that, okay, you're gonna help game plan, or you're gonna help with in-game situations, or you're gonna help with the quarterbacks. I think they probably brought him in and said, all right, Dana, let's sit down. I want you to take this bye week. I mean, he's here on Monday, so sit down, like look at our operation, like sit in on meetings, come to practice, chat with coaches. And wherever you think, or like if Rule's having a conversation with him like Thursday into the week before they go out on the road and recruit, now that you've seen this for 3 or 4 days, like what do you think is the best way that you can help us? Like, I don't know that they brought him in saying, we know the best way that you can help us. Like, let's look at this. Let's assess everything. And then maybe they get to today and he says, yeah, I really think I can add something in working with the quarterbacks over the next couple of weeks. And then they go that way. I mean, to me, it makes more sense that he's more of like an overall like offensive advisor, and that he can help with bigger picture things than like quarterback mechanics. But if they could come to that conclusion.
Yeah, Mitch, I totally I didn't brush to any sweeping judgments other than I felt like I was encouraged that Coach Rule is willing to explore options to get better. Because I remember, and I talked about this yesterday briefly, in our first sit down a couple of summers ago, I asked him, I said, how do you not, or do you not fall in love with the fact you've done this before? And so there could be this thing in you that says, oh, I've done this before, I know how. But that's in stark contrast to you being a lifelong learner. So you're always kind of tinkering with the process. And he talked about always exploring every option, even though he has like a basic blueprint. Mm-hmm. Couldn't this just be like a further, and maybe I hear what I want to hear, but this could just be like further proof that, hey, I know I've been good in some areas in rebuilds before, but I'm at a process here that I haven't seen before from a consistency standpoint. So let me just see what I'm doing. Like, I think that's, for me, that's encouraging, because I would never just want to trust myself, right? I would always want somebody that I trust to say, hey, it looks like this from my vantage point. What do you I mean, it's just too hard to turn somebody over to themselves all the time to have all the answers.
And I think he's discovered, and he knew this coming in, he just didn't know what the specifics of it would be. But there are different challenges that exist at Nebraska, even though Nebraska's better resourced than Temple and Baylor, even though Nebraska was arguably, I mean, like physically and from a roster perspective, Nebraska was in a much better spot than what he found at the other schools. I think that we've certainly found that psychologically, emotionally, mentally,
you can't replicate coaching with expectations.
Yeah, it wasn't, but there are challenges on that side of it that have existed that he's not necessarily dealt with before. So if that's going to be the case, and you figure that out in 21 games, and it probably took less than 20, it might have taken one game for him to figure that out. Here we are at this like critical juncture with 3 games left in this important second season. To make progress, not to show progress, as he said. I thought that was really interesting, and that it was part of that answer that you played. He said, our goal is not to show progress, it's to make progress. He's like, all right, I got to do something different. I got to go outside the box, because, like, make no mistake, like, this is outside of his comfort zone. It's outside of his comfort zone to bring in a consultant for the final 3 games, the final 4 weeks of a football season. Like, it wouldn't necessarily be outside of his comfort zone to do this in January when the season's over and you've assessed it internally, and then you can go out but to do it right now is outside of his comfort zone. And the fact that he's willing to do that, yeah, it backs up what he says about how when he says, I'm ready and willing to do whatever it takes.
I think that's what you just said, and I didn't say that all week, so shout out to you for saying it better in my thoughts. I think that's the part I appreciate the most. He's clearly out of his comfort zone, but he put his money where his mouth is. Right? Like, if you say you're a lifelong learner and you're about results, you got to do what it takes, even if you're uncomfortable. And I'm with you. This couldn't have been easy.
He's out of his comfort zone, not just in doing this, but also in who he chose to bring in, not with Phil Snow, but with Holgorsen. It's interesting that they're even friends because they're so different, like personality wise. I think it's cool that they can mesh and like they can be people who see eye to eye, but like Holgersen's whole way of, and not his whole way, but like just on the surface, the way that his football teams have played are so much different than the programs that Matt Rule has built. And if there's going to be a marriage between the two of these guys, like they're going to have to, it's generally going to work on the head coach's terms. Like the head coach is the one who runs the program at the end of the day. And it would be really interesting to see like how a Dana Holgorsen system could work with like what Matt Rule wants to do and the way he builds a team and the way that he goes into games, because we know it's defensive oriented and it has to be defensive oriented in the Big Ten. That's just what it is. Like that's this conference. So that's not changing. And I don't even know if Holgorsen would want to be a part of that.
Mitch, I'm going to ask you a wild card question here because it's something we've talked about a little bit, me and DB, over the last week or so, and you're thoughtful, so I kind of want to get your answer. Totally out of left field here. Out of Michigan and USC, who would you rather be moving forward?
I love out of left field. USC, I think. I mean, there's two totally different ways to look at that. And my initial answer, like what I told you, was based on my confidence in the two head coaches, because Lincoln Riley has done it and proved it. And I do have belief that he can figure this out if he's given the time and gets the right mix of players. But everything else about that question would choose me to say Michigan. I mean, the resources there, like the comfort level of being in the position that it is within the Big Ten, fact that it won the national championship last year. Like, look, I mean, it wasn't all about Jim Harbaugh. He's a good coach, but like you can replicate that at Michigan. USC has some institutional hurdles that it would have to clear in order to become a force in the Big Ten. So I thought about it like right off the bat about Lincoln Riley, who's established and has, all kinds of quarterbacks in the NFL and, has played in the college football playoff, versus Sharon Moore, who's in his first year. And I thought, yeah, I'd rather be in USC's shoes, but I don't know, thinking about it more deeply about just, and it's probably more about more than one person. It's about more than the head coach. If I'm thinking about it on an institutional level, it's definitely Michigan.
That's Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. Mitch, appreciate the time as always. We'll talk again soon.
Thanks, Mitch.
All right. Thanks, guys.
We'll be back with more Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. It's time for Bet On It, brought to you by Warhorse Sportsbook, the best place in Nebraska to place your sports bets. Make sure you get to the casinos in Lincoln or Omaha to place your bets in person. And make sure you get to warhorsecasino.com to check out all their promotions and a full list of details and house rules. That's Warhorse Sportsbook, no bets, no glory.
My other diehard Michigan fan is lockstep in agreement with Mitch.
About it,
he said it's a coaching issue.
So I would like to get into that a little bit here, because the way you originally framed the question and the way I answered it was not about the current coaches. It was about if I'm taking over
guiding
that
their
job.
programs going forward.
And so I'm looking at, okay, which job would I rather have? And part of that is a thing that you've kind of planted a bug in my head about it being easier to build or succeed under the radar than it is under a microscope, right? It's the Indiana versus Nebraska thing. It's easier when people get excited when you win, but are kind of like, okay, whatever. When's basketball season when you lose?
Yeah, Coach Rule has never been critiqued the way that he was if his team was 5-1.
Yeah.
I think that was a shock to his system.
100%.
He brought it up in a presser and he moved on, and we didn't think anything of it. But that's
new for him.
Yeah, it's totally new for him.
100%. Because he's never had a job like that before, and most people haven't. Like, that's fine. That's part of the reason you like Nebraska not to be the biggest job somebody's ever had. But still, if you're 5-1 in the NFL, nobody's criticizing you.
Yep.
Like very few people are criticizing you, right?
I mean, Kansas City could be the ugliest 7-0,
and they are,
and they are,
and they are.
But the Steelers are 6-2, and it's like, yeah, but they're 6-2.
No, yeah, 6-2. We love it. We're good, right? Mike Tomlin's still a genius, right? Like no issues.
I
there.
truly think that shook them. And I said this in the pressers. I said this, Coach Satterfield. You don't have to explain it to us. Just do your thing.
Yeah.
Hey, no, we can score in the fourth quarter if we need to. No, we can score.
No.
Listen, don't
apologize.
Don't apologize for that, because what you're gonna do subconsciously
is then try to.
Man,
you're gonna try and prove people wrong.
Yep.
Which is why, honestly, frankly, I
said that in real time. This isn't
revisionist history.
No. Because you can see it coming.
100%.
Like,
because it's human nature.
Don't listen to us.
Yes.
Just
do
win.
your thing.
Just win.
You have to have enough conviction just to keep on plugging, right? And it's human nature, right, to try and prove people wrong. That's also part of the reason, despite the fact that I didn't think it would be helpful to fire Satterfield midseason, part of the reason I didn't want it to happen is because, just don't listen to the mob. Don't listen to the mob. Because at that point, if you fire Satterfield in season, it's going to feel like you just listen to the public pressure.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't want that to be how we operate our program, because a lot of times the public is reactionary and emotional, right? That's what fans do. We're emotional. And so I think it's dangerous to put too much stock in a short time period in what's being said there. Now, I do like bringing in an experienced guy like Dana Holgorsen, consultant, analyst, whatever you want to call him, because I do think it shows some conviction of, hey, and some security about, hey, this is who we are, this is what we're about. I'm not worried about bringing somebody else in to that, if I'm Marcus Satterfield, may feel like a threat.
Yeah, so did you read Mike's comments? Because this is where we have to get over ourselves.
Yeah.
I don't mean to be disrespectful to Mike, but it's so Dana is here to coach the coaches. First of all, I minimize, I don't know if he's being snarky or not.
Sure.
But that happens
all the time.
Everywhere. The time. You ever I seek counseling from other good fathers.
Yeah.
Not because I'm a bad father, but because
you want to get better.
I want to get better.
You always want to be better.
I just want to own my craft,
yeah.
Right? Companies do that.
Yeah.
All
you surround
the
yourself
time.
with smart people because you want to be smarter.
So why I don't know why we have to think of it like that. I think we're hung up on the semantics of it.
Can I be honest what I think it is? And this is not a slight, because I've had a lot of jobs like this too. Most people who just work regular jobs, if you bring in someone who either does your job or does something very similar to your job and is viewed as better at it, then there's no room for you anymore, right? You're not working these types of organizations. 49ers are a really good example here. The 49ers typically have pretty good offense, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty good offense. And this is not including their head coach. How many offensive assistants do you think they have on staff?
I don't know. It's 15.
13, 14 if you include Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah.
14 offensive coaches on that staff.
Yeah.
Is that too many cooks in the kitchen?
No, you don't have to. I get it.
They've got 5 offensive line coaches.
Oh, I get it, man.
Literally, it's 4 or 5. I lost count, but they have 4 or 5 offensive line coaches.
I know how. Yeah, I'm with
right?
you. I'm with
you. Do you think the head offensive line coach is mad when he brings in another assistant offensive line coach? No, that's just help.
Or when he says, "Hey, you go work guard, center guard today. I'm going to
take tackles, right? Or I've got a run game coordinator and I've got a pass game coordinator and then I've got an offensive coordinator. Do you think Kyle Shanahan can't do all the things?
And that doesn't mean that all the guys that they have want to do everything.
Yes.
Some guys just like their niche role.
It's a great example. I didn't like actual on-court coaching basketball. I find kids to be annoying and tiresome and not very good listeners. I don't want to be a part of that. You know what I like doing? I like evaluating talent. I like putting together strength and conditioning programs. I like scouting, right? So I find my niche and I do those things. And I'm like, you can do the on-court coaching without me. I don't need to be a part of that. I don't want to be their head coach. You could bring me in any situation, and I have no interest in taking your job. Just let me do the things I'm good at, right?
And it is because conversely, it's hard to hire people that want your job.
Yeah.
I mean, don't do that.
I mean, and you've got another example. You think, is Matt LaFleur a worse coach because he brought in Robert Saleh midseason? No, he saw a guy that he thought could help.
Yeah.
He's like, we're going to bring Robert Saleh. We think he's good at what he does.
I think I think BC made a fantastic point about the respect coaches have for other coaches.
Sure, yeah. Because that matters.
They just think differently.
Yeah, that matters here.
And you're used to being in a team, and you're used to people telling you that you need to do certain things to achieve certain results.
And let's not pretend
you don't mind people telling you what you can do differently to get the desired outcome. Some people that haven't been coached, they don't like that. It happens at my dinner table, right? If you've never received criticism, it hits different than if somebody says, you know what, and instead of playing at 212, try 200. You could move better.
Yeah.
Well, you don't like the way I look? Oh man, no. It's like,
it's not about that.
It's like, oh, okay, yeah, I feel better lighter.
Yeah,
or whatever, right?
Better, yeah.
So,
well, and I think it matters again. The source, right? The source of the criticism or the coaching matters. Like Dan Holgerson.
So does the pre-existing relationship.
100%.
Like for Sad or McGuire or whatever, like the relationship matters.
Right, 100%.
You have to know what the market will bear,
and
for lack of a better analogy,
for sure. But I do think it matters that you bring in a guy in Dana Holgerson who's been through some of these things.
Yeah,
he's been. I mean, do we not remember?
Yeah, this guy couldn't coach Cam Ward. Let's listen, man. Like Google.
Do we not remember how he got his first head coaching job at West Virginia? Yeah. That was a mess. Yeah. Do we not remember the fact that he just got let go from Houston last year?
Yeah.
Like that was a mess.
How long was he? How long was he in TCU?
6 months, 8, 10 months. I don't know when he got hired.
We don't really know.
Yeah, we have no idea.
Yeah. Guess.
So this is a guy that at least has some experience being in uncomfortable situations. That matters when you're going to a guy currently in an uncomfortable situation, or several guys currently in an uncomfortable situation, and say, hey, what about this? I brought up quarterbacks with Mitch. You know the other position that Dana Holgerson has coached extensively? Off the top of your head?
Pardon?
The other position Dana Holgerson has coached extensively besides quarterbacks?
No.
Wide receivers.
No, Mike meant no snark. Just wanted an answer.
Oh, that's fair.
Yeah, and I didn't know. Like, I didn't want to assume.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like.
It's hard to tell over the text sometimes. Yeah. But yeah, the two position groups that Dana Holgerson has coached extensively, wide receivers, quarterbacks. Like, those are two positions where, like, maybe this isn't even about Satterfield.
I just didn't want to. I don't want to jump to conclusions.
I don't either.
Right.
But I'm saying, like, let's be open to
the. That's. Yeah,
let's be open to what he might be doing here.
I'm 100%
right.
with you.
Like, he could. Maybe he's here to help Satterfield. Maybe he's here to help Glenn Thomas. Maybe he's here to help.
And it's going to help too. I'm not putting him on. I mean, he can call later on if he wants. I'm talking to another parent.
Mm-hmm.
He has some points. He's just going through this whole list. I mean, he has some legit points.
Mm-hmm.
And there are things that have to be addressed if Nebraska wants to move forward. And I think part of what they're doing is to help in the exact thing that he's talking about, which it's all about accountability, right? And from head coach to coordinator, from coordinator to position coach, from position coaches to players, you have to start with direction.
Let me tell you what I'm betting on before we get out of here. What I'm betting on is if Coach Rule hadn't done anything during the bye week, we'd be freaking out even more. For all the hand-wringing about what's he doing here and what are we paying consultants and whatever, if Coach Rule had stood pat during the bye week, I can bet you the sky would be falling.
Listen, I would take that plus mortgage.
I'd take out a HELOC to put money on that one.
You're spot on.
We got John Fanta coming up next. Talk a little college hoops.
We will be back. will be back. We will be back. We will be back. Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
J7551. Look down low and another assist for Trey. That gives him 10. Marquette now showing zone. Skips it out. Here's a corner three. Yes, sir! Baylor Sherman into the ground.
Wrapping up the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill on the Pillar exterior stage. We're efforting our friend John Fanta here. We didn't get to a lot of stuff today.
NFL trade deadline,
Yeah, you
baby.
got a wide receiver. How you feeling? And a pass rusher.
Yeah, I feel good.
You feel good?
Yeah.
Big Mike Williams guy?
I'm a big body catch radius guy with Russell Wilson.
That helps. Yeah.
Yeah.
A little help for your guy Pickens out there?
Yep. And they can let Austin work the slot.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Let him cook a little bit?
I'm good.
Let Russ cook. Let Russ eat.
Doesn't even sound right. But I am secretly just I'm hoping to just stick it to you over Russell Wilson here in the
Steel City. Let's weld.
Okay.
Shane, we got our guy John Fanta here.
He's here
from Fox. He is a broadcaster. John, where are you talking to us from today?
Hi, guys. I'm coming to you live from outside Gamble Pavilion in stores. As the bus passes, there are students behind me that have been out here since 7 a.m. getting ready for UConn and Sacred Heart on another banner night for the University of Connecticut. The back-to-back reigning national champions look to start a pursuit for something only John wouldn't. has done in men's college basketball.
You're not going to get this anywhere else. I'm just going to go ahead and say, Fanta, you are the GOAT. My man is just out in the streets because you wanted to fulfill the fact that you said you'd be. I mean, this is John. If you were busy, you could have hit us back, but we appreciate it, man.
Real quick, John. Just a trivia question. What's the last game UConn lost?
The last time that Connecticut lost was to the Creighton Blue Jays in Omaha.
Shoot. Oh shoot! I didn't even realize.
on a night where Stephen Ashworth couldn't miss, the Jays hit 14 threes. They blitzed them and they never looked back. And that's why Creighton, Connecticut, guys, has become a fun rivalry. Two really well-coached teams.
I'm not going to put you on the hot seat just yet for your Final Four. I'm going to get your opinion on something. Of schools that start with A, Arkansas, Auburn, Arizona, and Alabama, over under 1.5 of teams that will be in your Final Four.
Ooh. Arkansas, Alabama, Auburn. That was the three. Was there a fourth?
Arkansas, Auburn, Arizona, Alabama.
Under
1.5 of teams that start with A.
Yeah, I think one of them will make it. I could very well see Alabama making, because I think they have the most explosive roster offensively in the country. I think Mark Sears is as good as any player in college basketball. Grant Nelson's back. Cliff Amore coming over from Rutgers. Nebraska fans know Amore. They know how good of a big man he is. And Nate Oates has done a marvelous job. I'm not buying Arizona's front court, guys. They lost Umar Ballard to Indiana. I don't think they have enough. Auburn, I don't trust Bruce Pearl lately in the tournament. They lost to Yale last year. I just don't trust them. And I think Arkansas needs – I don't think they have a Final Four caliber roster unless DJ Wagner fully comes into his own.
Mm-hmm. John, I got to ask about UConn here for a second, not just because you're out in front there of the building, but because, I love them so dearly. No, they're obviously coming off the back-to-back national titles, but there's a lot of new faces outside of Alex Karaban, not a lot of guys that you may recognize from those two national titles. Like, I know that they've recruited super well. Does that attrition matter at some point?
Yeah, it does. There's no question about it. I mean, when you're on the mountaintop, as much as you're recruiting players, they're also recruiting you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in our world in 2024 college sports, fellas, that's really hard to achieve. But you're right in the sense of, look, UConn, it's hard to stay on this level. It is. They've won 12 straight NCAA tournament games by a combined 260 points. 260 points. Analytically, they've been the best offensive team in college basketball the last 2 years. It's their offense that's amazing to me. What Dan Hurley says is this, in terms of recruiting. They're looking for guys that fit offensively, that can run European concepts. Hurley watches a lot of Euro basketball, the movement, the off-ball stuff. Greg McDermott does this too. When we focus on Connecticut, when Anthony Latina, the Sacred Heart coach, I have Sacred Heart and UConn tonight, 7 Eastern Time, FS1. Anthony said to us a few moments ago in a phone call that when a set gets broken up, when Connecticut's running a set, every other team just stops running the set. He goes, for UConn, it's like, okay, plan B, plan C, plan D, plan E, all within the same shot clock. And he said that makes them just so scary that they can do that in a 30-second span. They're so advanced. Hurley has changed his mindset. How many coaches through the years have you said, well, you know what? I want great defenders who are tough and physical and who rebound. Then we'll work on the offense. Hurley's telling people, I want offense. I want scoring. I want people who can score the ball in a variety of ways. The defense part, that's mandatory in my practice. I'll get you to play defense. That's effort and heart. I want guys who can get buckets. And that's what made UConn so dangerous last year. It's what's led them to 43-3 in their last 46 games. One of those 3 to Creighton, yes. The other to Kansas, the other to Seton Hall. Is they just make you pick your poison when you're defending them. And I don't think they're going to slow down because Alex Karaban is back. Liam McNeely's one of the best freshmen in the country. And Hassan Diarra can run the point while Aiden Mahaney, the St. Mary's transfer, is learning the position. look, it's what have you done for me lately in stores? They wouldn't have it any other way. But how have they been so dominant? It's been through elite offensive concepts that other teams cannot do.
John, that's kind of the dirty little secret that coaches don't like to talk about because they like to focus on defense, right? You can teach defense easier than you can teach offensive skills.
It's such a great point. And that's why you guys are always fun to talk to because you get the game. I love talking ball with you guys. I think that's it. Greg McDermott's mastered that too. Yep. With offensive concepts and with running great sets and motion and constant movement. I think off-ball movement in college basketball. Watch these teams play the first couple weeks. The teams that don't move off the ball, do you know why they're not moving off the ball? Because they've never played together. I'm walking into the room and I don't even recognize you. It looks like a first day of school. So, I know one thing. If I walked into the classroom, I wouldn't sit next to Damon the first day because I know for a fact he'd have me doing some prank with the teacher.
John, let me ask you something because inevitably conference strength will come up and the Big 12 is going to be the beneficiary of Arizona, and they've already got Houston and Kansas and Iowa State and Baylor. If you had to say now, who's going to be the best conference in college basketball?
It's the Big 12 in the regular season. It is. Now, the NCAA tournament's a different barometer. I think the SEC or the Big East will have a case. At the end of the day, guys, the Big East, the last two NCAA tournaments, yes, I know one school has 12 of these wins. But the Big East has gone 22-6 in the last two NCAA tournaments. That's a lot of tournament units, fellas. That's close to 30 tournament units. That's $35, $40 million we're talking about here. So I think the Big 12 analytically in the regular season is still college basketball's best conference. Why? You're talking about 5 top 10 caliber teams. Kansas, Houston, Iowa State, Baylor, who got blitzed by Gonzaga. I think Scott Drew just called another timeout. And Arizona's in the mix there too. But don't count out Cincinnati. Jizzle James and Simas Lukosius.
They actually may be able to score this year a little bit.
They're going to be able to score. You know why? They got a lot of dudes back. The teams that are going to take off, like a Cincinnati, they have roster continuity. Ohio State looked the part the other night. Texas Tech has roster continuity. Ole Miss has old dudes. So there's a lot of intrigue there from the 15s to 20s, but Cincinnati's in the Big 12. BYU with Igor Demon, who shined last night. They're in the Big 12 too. The 7th or 8th best Big 12 team could be in the top 15 of the AP top 25 at any point this season. That's how good of a league that is.
Yeah, and as a Carolina honk, I've watched slowly how it has gotten away from the ACC. And that's listen, I think Wake's going to be tough. I think Pitt is going to be a problem. Flag is at Duke, and Duke is Duke. And I'm a Carolina guy. I don't think Cadeau's going to shoot 3 or 4 from 3 in about 3 weeks, let alone against Kansas tomorrow night. But where's the ACC belong in that pecking order as one of these traditional historic blue bloods?
Can be 4 if here's the if Louisville is a factor. So Pat Kelsey takes over. I think it's one of the most compelling storylines in the country. Louisville has been dormant now for several years. They have been the furthest thing from what they should be. But you bring in Case and Pryor, and you bring in a couple of other pieces. Terrence Edwards comes into this program. You bring in Chucky Hepburn from Wisconsin. They went out, and I thought they did a tremendous job building out their roster. Rain Smith, James Scott come over with Kelsey from Charleston. For those who don't know Pat Kelsey, I'm telling you both right now, he is the Energizer Bunny of all Energizer Bunnies, but he runs fast-paced offense. And you guys, we talk about this all the time, how much coaching matters. A lot of times people are like, well, a first-year coach is sometimes at a disadvantage because they're learning the rest of the league. Kelsey's style is so aggressive, it's the other way around, in my opinion. The way he's going to play is very different from other ACC teams. And here's the other thing Pat Kelsey doesn't have to deal with in his first year in the league. He doesn't have to deal with Tony Bennett. Virginia is going to take a tailspin. They are. They're going to. They already are. There's an open door after Duke and Carolina for somebody to step up. Yes, you're right. Wake Forest, no question that Hunter Salas is an All-American, and that team with Efton Reed and the other players they've got back can be a real factor. But I think that Louisville can step into an open doorway and be a factor here in not only the ACC, but be a team that makes the NCAA tournament. Because when you look at Hepburn and you look at Case and Pryor and you look at all the pieces that they have, a lot of versatility, a lot of scoring, an intriguing team for the Cardinals, the ACC can be the 4th or 5th best league. I think this year it kind of goes Big 12, SEC. I'll loop in the Big East because I think they could have as many as 5 top 25 teams. Then it's a battle between Big 10 and ACC.